Day 4 of the candidates in Yekaterinburg, Russia. 8 chess gladiators return to the stage to do battle in an epic race to decide who will challenge world champion Magnus Carlsen. Fabiano Caruana failed to make the most of a promising position against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave missed a crushing win in his game with Alexander Grischuk, leaving him once again in a 3-way tie for first. The world is watching to see which of these chess matadors will take the bull by the horns. Round 5 of exciting action coming up next.
From Yekaterinburg, Russia, it is time for the 5th round of the 2020 candidates to determine the challenger to world champion Magnus Carlsen. I'm Alejandro Ramirez here with Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan. Yes, sir.
Alejandro, namaste. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the 2020 Candidates Tournament. Look, they're like, it's got to be the shoes. Did you see those shoes? Those are wonderful from Anish there. Hello, everyone. The first 3 rounds, we were treated to a lot of decisive games. Round 4 had a lot of action, and there was 2 opportunities for maybe victories, but as it ended out, 4 draws. Let's take a look at the standings, Alejandro.
Of course, with the 4 draws, things didn't change, but let's review where they are. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, Wang Hao, and Jan Nepomniachtchi are the ones clinging on to first place with 2.5 points, but it's not a very solid lead. They only have half a point over Alexander Grischuk and Fabiano Caruana, both sitting on 50%. Meanwhile, Anish Giri, Ding Liren, and Kirill Alexeyenko, they're only at -1. So 1 win against one of the leaders by them will catapult them exactly where they need to be. It's a very, very tight race so far. It's what we expect from a candidate. We've had a lot of decisive results, but nobody has stood out as the clear frontrunner just yet.
Not yet. And let's take a look at our format.
It's a 14-round double round robin. That means that every player gets equal amounts of whites and equal amounts of blacks. That makes the tournament safe and very, very healthy. Otherwise, I mean, you get all this controversy.
Very fair.
Very fair. 100 minutes for the first 40 moves, 50 minutes for the next 20. Once you reach move 60, you get another 15 minutes. It's a 30-second increment all throughout the game from move 1 until the end. And no draw offers before Black's 40th move. Even after the 40th move, we actually haven't seen too many draw offers.
No,
they found repetitions and things like that.
Exactly.
€500,000 is the prize fund in this tournament.
Everybody's pursuing the goal of being challenger, however. Lots of chess left in the schedule.
Absolutely. Today is round 5. Tomorrow we'll have round 6, and you can see on that schedule those green lines represent the rest days. There will be a rest day on Tuesday. But tomorrow, there's still another game, so do join us for that one. But enough of the schedule. We have breaking news, and for that, we have Grandmaster Maurice Ashley.
Thank you, Alejandro. We see some exciting games in this tournament so far, and it is no doubt we're going to see some more. And this round, here is one of them. Kirill Alexeyenko, the bottom seed in this tournament, playing against one of, what we say, presumptive favorites, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. He got here by way of a little aborting of a tournament of the game between of Radjabov, Tibor Radjabov decided he would not play due to the health concerns. But now Maxim saying, look, I am super prepared, and look at this preparation. Absolutely incredible. Kirill got this position. His pawn's under attack. And remember that game a couple of rounds ago when he had the chance to sacrifice on G6 against Nepo? He said, you know what? The world didn't like it when I didn't, so let's go for it. Let's sack a rook. Of course, you couldn't accept it right away because of the move knight takes on E6, trapping the queen. But Maxime, how prepared is this guy? He instantly captured on C3, and this stunned Kirill as he sat and thought for 48 minutes, 48, and decided to drop knight takes E6 on the board. What a move. I mean, this is visual. Look how many things are hanging. Queen C8, cool, calm by Maxime. Knight check, king to F8, and then rook to H6. Don't take the knight. That's a sacrifice. That would certainly burn as Queen G1 check, and then your rook will hang to mate. So instead, he played rook takes H6, rook takes, and just as you think, well, there's got to be a deadly disco in the position, rook takes C2, do your worst, no problem. And after knight F5, king to E8, knight takes on E7, and it looks as though this is the first time Maxime is actually thinking in this game. King takes E7 looks like the natural move, but we should note it's only move 23, and Kirill has 8 minutes and 35 seconds left on his clock to make another 17 moves. That's not much in a sharp position like this one. This one is really important because if Maxime wins, he'll go to +2, but there are two other players who are looking to also go to +2, and that's Jan Nepomniachtchi and Wang Hao. You see there, Jan has a 3-1 lead in their matchups. Just a bit of an advantage there, and he has the white pieces today. And Nepo got here showing that he belongs. He is indeed the number 4 player in the live rankings right now on the planet. He won that first game against Giri just in style. One of the best games of the event so far. And then a draw against Grishuk, a draw against Alexenko, both of those his countrymen. And then a fighting draw against Caruana. He might have been in some trouble, but when Caruana slipped, he came right back and proved why it is that he is this strong. And Nepo has been something of an enigma on the tour. He's the kind of player who never seems happy. If he wins or loses, he still has the same expression. He is seemingly a type of skeptic about chess. But when he gets to the board, he is indeed a beast, a natural player. He likes to play quickly, intimidate his opponents. He might make some mistakes, but then he'll play brilliant chess, and he is indeed someone to watch for this tournament. Another person to watch out for is Wang Hao. He is the number 7 seed in this competition, but make no bones about it, he is a top 10 player, and he's proven it, in fact, by defeating the number 3 player on the planet, Ding Liren. That has catapulted him into the top 10. His draw against Giri, he's going to be saying, man, I could have been +2 if only I'd found the right move there. And then 2 other draws against Grishuk and against Alexenko. And maybe you don't know who he is, but the top players do know. He's been a talent for many, many years. He's beaten all of them. He's got a 5-0 record against Fabiano Caruana. So indeed, this is a player who can pick them up and put them down against the elite on the planet. If he wins, it would be a surprise, but it wouldn't be a complete shocker indeed, as anything could happen in a tournament this strong. And this round, once again, is keeping us on our toes.
Thank you, Maurice. And as we see those 2 pairings, let's take a look at all the pairings. Alejandro.
Of course, the compliments to those are Alexander Grishuk playing against Ding Liren in a complicated Spanish, and Anish Giri trying to press against Fabiano Caruana in a very, very complex Slav. But Yasser, enough of this. Let's go directly into Kirill's game, because what on earth is going on here?
I'm hoping that you're going to be answering those questions for us. As it turns out, the players have reached a position that has been seen in 3 Grandmaster games.
Here after the move rook takes G4. So
yes.
This is all what we've known theory.
Right,
and
exactly.
Alexenko even blitzed out to this position, so he was well aware. Now, a little bit about psychology of the players. This is not MVL's Najdorf.
Right. MVL is more of an E5 player than he is the E6 player. So we get the English move order with F2, F3. And Najdorf players, like MVL, like to play E5. And I have no doubts that Kirill was actually prepared for this move. So the move E7, E6 might have been a bit of a surprise for them. And they blitzed their way to, again, this theoretically known position. excuse me for just speeding right through. And here, in 3 previous games, black has essayed the move king f8, which makes perfect sense as you're defending the pawn on g7. But this is where MVL came up with his novelty, and it's really sort of like a challenging novelty. You go g7, g6, and it's pretty self-evident that, hey, there are plenty of sacrifices that black has to face.
It really is a move that you look at it, and black's saying, do your worst.
Exactly.
Everything's obvious here for white, but what actually works? And that's not so easy to calculate.
Exactly. That is the tough part. I mean, do you play knight takes e6? Do you even play some other positional move, like a move, I don't know, like queen g1, preparing sacrifices? As it turns out, he took a lot of time on these sacrifices, but once he made them...
Yeah, and let's notice just very quickly that rook g6, obviously the rook is taboo. Let's just show why.
Exactly. You take the rook and, oops, your queen is checkmated. That is to say, your queen is run out of squares. c7 is covered, and the queen can't escape.
So that's the end of the game, and that's the reason for the intermezzo rook takes c3.
As the queen is actually given more free reign, so now black is thinking, okay, take my rook, and I can take your rook, and my queen gets away.
So Kirill thought for a very long time here.
Precisely, because I think he was contemplating queen takes c3.
And now we have to analyze, because again, it seems that if you take the rook on g6, knight takes c6 must be devastating.
Exactly, because it's a discovered attack against the rook as well as the queen, and this is curtains.
Yeah.
But there is the intermezzo move, knight a4.
Just removing the queen from that diagonal.
Precisely. Now, if the queen moves, I don't care. Let's say we just drop back for a second. Now you can take the rook and, well, let me just say it's a mess.
It's a mess.
It's a mess.
I mean, you're down a piece for 2 pawns as white.
Yeah.
The king on e8 is unsafe, but it is an extra piece.
It is an extra piece, and, well, you know, white is the one who's going to have to prove the validity of the sacrifice. Therefore, we saw the move knight takes e6. Now, again, you can't really stop and take the knight, because now you take the rook. You've only sacrificed...
1 piece still.
What 1 piece for?
No, it's not even
2
1
pieces.
2 pieces for a rook.
And a pawn or 2?
And I believe 2 pawns.
Well, okay,
So
good enough.
It's not even a real advantage for material.
No, indeed. So knight takes e6, forced reaction, queen c8. Now again, MVL could have prepared all of this once he played the move g7, g6.
Yeah.
These sacrifices come one after another. Check, king over, rook h6.
It's a clever move, this rook h6. Pretty much saving some material.
Yes.
You absolutely have to take on h6. I don't see another move.
Exactly. And then bishop takes, and now rook takes e2. So it's
that move is so cool. Right? It really echoes that game that MVL himself played with white against Fabi.
Where the e5, e4.
With the knight on f7, you had all these discoveries, but they didn't do anything.
Right, and that's what he's saying. Go ahead, make your disco.
Do your worst.
Right.
And again, it seems that there must be something, but black starts to have his own threats. With the rook now on c2, rook takes b2 might be there.
Knight a4.
Knight a4.
Be a little careful, because rook b2 and knight a4, maybe even in conjunction with queen c2. Things could get a little bit sticky here for white.
And as Buckhouse players know, the knight directly in front of the king or diagonal to the king doesn't do very much.
No,
right?
no.
This knight actually takes a while to remaneuver to actually deliver a killing blow. It can win some material, it can destroy some structures, but actually deliver a killing blow. It's not so easy.
Not so easy. Kirill, who, again, as Maurice said at the top of the show, way down on the clock.
Yes.
The best he could come up with was check and takes on e7. Okay, it does, by the way, contain the threat, so...
No choice.
No choice. King takes e7. Now queen...
a4 check.
h4 check. It does cover h2. I think Kirill's getting ready to play bishop d3 to boot the rook. But are we up to date with the player?
It seems a little bit vague, yes, because here Maxime is thinking, it seems to
First
be his
time
first
in the game.
very long think of the position.
Okay.
And this is the head-of-head between them, and VL
Not
having...
much of a history.
Not at all, really.
No,
VL having won
one
one game. Not really sure where that was. It might have even been a while ago. Remember,
like
Alexenko?
Open tournaments.
Maybe Alexenko is considerably younger than MVL.
Yeah, of course, of course. So queen h4 check, and we're up to date. Maurice, jump in here with how do you think? What is it that MVL is looking at?
Yeah.
you don't want to know what I'm about to show you.
Okay, please.
Okay? Because I've been looking at this absolutely chaotic position with the engine, and, well, I need you guys. Because this is insane. We can go through this one by one. So already we've seen sacrifice, double sack, counter sack, all that's going on. We see that White is currently down a piece for 1 pawn. He's got 2 minor pieces against 3. He's got 5 pawns to 4. His bishop is hanging on e2 at the moment. Potential sacrifices, as you guys mentioned, on the b2 square. But this position simply has no positional elements to sink your teeth into. You know, as you look and you say, okay, so you've got the weak pawn here. Weak pawn? What are you talking about? This is about kings being attacked and tactics. And tactics. That's it. So every move has to be calculated. So it's no surprise MVL is going to a deep thing. So let's play one casual looking move, knight f6. Doesn't look like necessarily the best move to play. It might get pinned, but you know, if you get your knight to d7, it's rock solid. It looks like it should be okay. Until the guy drops rook takes d6 out of nowhere. Like, whoa, another sack? How many sacrifices do you have? The point being that now, if king takes on d6, now it's White who is winning after queen takes. Winning, by the way. These bishops are ready to maraud the position, particularly this one, and you literally have nothing to do. Remember, your queen can't come help because this rook is hanging. White's going to be up 2 pawns, so keep material count going. White's going to be up 2 pawns, so you cannot trade queens. And where do you hide your king? If you play king back to d7, which is like time to hightail out of there, you can't go to c7. Remember, this rook is hanging. Then White continues the attack with queen takes, and now you're in deep trouble because you can't block, and then your next step is going to be on the dark square, and guess who's going to come into the party? This bishop. So rook takes d6 is a monster shot. Rook takes. Now, it's not over because he can say, okay, fine. You're right. My bad. Let me protect the position. Well, now he continues with another sacrifice. Yet again, rook takes on d7. Now you still can't take with the queen. Remember, this rook is hanging. You can't take with the knight because you're pinned, so you have to take with the king. That allows queen takes, sacking this bishop. Well, you just got 2 pawns again, the 2 bishops chasing down the king, so you might as well remove this one. And after takes, king moves, and now queen check. Your king can hide. Again, the dark squares are a problem because this bishop will enter the game. You have to go back to the light square and allow a perpet. So that's one line, all right? Let's get out of that line and play instead the move f6, which looks like it's solid, it's doing the job. Well, this bishop is hanging, so you think he's got to deal with it. And he just calmly plays bishop f4. Now, again, this bishop, the marauding piece, Black doesn't have a piece to counter it with. He's threatening bishop takes d6. He's threatening queen h7. He's threatening all kinds of nasties in the position. Now, there's so many moves here. I'd like you guys, so that I'm not just doing this monologue, to get in. Let me just show you. One move is rook takes b2.
Oh.
Okay? Going for knight a4 check, and the queen shows up. Another move is, you just mentioned, knight d5, blocking the path so that after pawn takes, he can play rook takes on e2. But now he's got to deal with queen to h7. And remember, d6 is going to hang. So it looks like in all the lines, White simply has compensation for this piece. I'm down a piece for a pawn, but your king is weaker than mine, and it doesn't matter that the bishop is hanging. The tactics bear this position out for White in all the lines I'm looking at. And by the way, I got lots more here. I could be going, this could be a lecture for the next 30 minutes as we break down every variation. It's crazy. And what's wild to me is that Maxime is now thinking for the first time about really thinking in this particular position where White is perfectly fine if he sees all the sacrifices. White's doing well. That's scary to me for Maxime. We've seen this before. We've seen the story in Anish blitzing against Nepo. He ended up losing, even though he was well in his prep. We saw Fabi blitz against Ding Liren. He also lost the game, even though he came straight out of prep. And now Maxime deeply thinking about a position that it was clear that he played and he had at home. Are we going to see the story happen for a third time?
Weird. And finally, one move that I found attractive, King E7, King E8 after Queen H4 check.
Yeah,
the
the
idea is
natural way, yeah.
well, I mean, Knight
move,
F6.
yeah.
Yeah, Knight F6. I walk into a pin, and I just F7, F6. Somehow I like that pawn on F7, giving me a little protection along the. So King E8. Does that have an obvious refutation?
Rook G1 and you could resign.
Oh, it does. I'm thinking I'm playing Rook B2 and Knight A4.
Well, now you're desperate because
Yeah,
here
because that-
comes
no,
this
no.
crushing blow.
Yeah,
the
but
problem with Rook B2 is he
No.
takes.
Yeah,
Knight A4 check looks good. King moves.
B1.
yeah.
Now you got to play a check.
King A1.
And now a nice sidestep.
And
Hello.
that's it.
End of checks. Story's done. Rook G8,
Rook G8 is coming.
And
That's great.
you've given away your rook now, so you're actually
Nice.
down material, and you don't have enough.
Right. So Rook G1 is just yeah.
Rook G1 is Kersplat. He did finally play the move F6.
Did
we have
Maxi.
this on the board, F6.
Now,
And-
after F6, you were mentioning the move Bishop F4, which definitely looks tempting. I look at Bishop F4, and that's one of the first moves I'm analyzing. But is there an alternative?
After Bishop F4.
Yes, and it's worse. The move Bishop to D2.
That doesn't seem very natural to me. I think.
Yeah,
I would
big
never really
retreating move.
consider
Well,
this move.
the move Bishop D2 actually is a straight point. Your bishop is hanging on E2.
Right.
And you clear the line for your queen.
Right.
Right.
And,
And
you
you-
stop Rook B2.
And Rook
Some-
B2 ideas are done. So it's
Right.
actually maybe not a natural move, but it has a lot of sense to it, right?
Right.
Because it saves everything for the moment. You're actually you still keep your pawn, and you hope to get some kind of Bishop B4 action later. But in the meantime, you get your own threats. So this move is not completely untoward. It seems like a decent enough alternative if he doesn't find the very sharp Bishop F4. The Bishop F4. You play it, but you better know that Rook takes on B2 doesn't work. By the way, I'm glad they played it so I can introduce another variation. Rook takes, King takes, the move Knight to A4 with check, King B1, Knight C3, same line we're in. Now, if you play, now you realize the Rook is actually hanging.
Exactly.
All right? So this piece will drop, so we have the line King B2, Knight D1, check, Bishop takes on D1.
But I could have forced a draw, just Knight A4, right?
Yes, you could have. Sorry. If we're here, King B2, you could go back. You could go back and say, I don't want to play anymore. That's it. Let's
That's
get out
it.
of here.
Yeah.
Right.
All right? So that is possible. So Bishop F4, if he plays it, allows the game, allows it from Black's standpoint to just be able to play Rook takes B2. So actually, if
He's
he
played
wants,
Bishop F4.
and he has played it. He doesn't have much time. If he wanted to get more out of the position, like dare his opponent, he could play Bishop D2. That would be the move to say, let's keep going. Let's see if this position has more in it. Because after Bishop to D2, the move the engine's giving is Knight E5. But Engines do like Black here. So this
Right.
would be a risk.
It is a piece.
For
It is a
Maxime. It is a
piece.
piece after all. So although the line Queen H7 check, it has to be met by Knight F7. And look at this one. E5. That's cute. E5. Well,
C2 is hanging.
C2 is hanging to a queen, and you're going to break up the position. So
Right.
this could have gone extremely wild. He might have considered this if he had another hour on the clock, but
And
It
the
don't
engine
have-
still don't like it, even with the move E5.
yeah, it's still a little bit better for white after Rook takes.
For Black, you mean?
For Black, sorry,
for
after Rook
Black.
takes on D2. But you got to admit, guys, this is worth a punch. I mean, this is certainly
wow.
Yeah,
worth
yeah.
going for if you
For
could
sure.
get this move in. So Bishop F4, he's now playing natural moves with the clock giving him so much pressure. He's just starting to play natural moves. Let's just keep playing natural moves. And Bishop F4 certainly is one of those moves that catches your eye, very aggressive, threatens a big threat, and tells the guy, well, if you want to draw, then go for it. But I'm okay with that given that my clock is in such a bad state.
And
Wow.
I am assuming it is a draw. I had another question since you do have the engine.
Yes.
After Knight A4 check, can I go King A1, or is
wanna
that just
play-
going to be a
you wanna
draw
play
anyway?
Takes here, Knight A4 check. Not now.
No, after Knight C3.
Here, and King A1. The thing is that D6 is protected. So here, white does have to go for this perpet line.
I have to. I cannot just take the knight.
Bishop takes on D1 is also playable. That does allow this queen to enter on a couple of squares, but this one being one, it's even material But I would think
Yeah, that king doesn't seem...
A3 is hanging. This bishop is dropping to
I feel like
check.
I'm one tempo too slow, right?
Yeah,
My
you
queen was on
better
the
come
queen
up with
side, I
something
have the
really
pair of
quick.
bishops, but...
Well, White's king are exposed,
so exposed, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't
Yeah.
be surprised if there was a perpetual
No,
check
not at all.
somewhere there for Black. Well, let's just go from explosiveness and calm our beating hearts to the matchup between our two tournament leaders coming into the round.
Yes.
Yan and Wang Hao. Boy, talk about a sedate game. Let me just take it from the very, very top because it's going to go very fast. It strikes me that so much of this was, well, I want to say theory, the Petrov. Very, very tough defense for White to crack. In fact, just to get play against the Petrov has been very difficult. A more tame line with knight d2.
Yeah, knight c3 being one of the main lines, trying to very quickly organize things on the king side.
Yes.
And it opens up the b file, which tactically can be important. There are some rook b1 ideas that they're not so trivially met. You don't really want to play b6. You don't want to put your queen defending a pawn.
Exactly. He didn't try that, though. Jan just played knight d2, and it seemed after knight d6, Black slowly, but did neutralize this early initiative. By the way, I should just point out that right here, this was a novel move, a novelty according to our database.
Hard to believe it hasn't been considered, though. It does seem very natural. It gives g5 the square to the white pieces. h5, h6 might be an idea. Obviously, the pawn's taboo.
Right, with the knight on d6 hanging, don't grab the pawn. You'll get spanked. Knight back, and then very quickly, well, I don't know. It just feels like, especially after bishop d6, that Black should be very, very satisfied. He just traded off everything.
Yeah, I was very surprised because I was getting ready for the show today.
Yes.
And I was analyzing this position after, before the move g4, I think, after knight takes e8. And I thought, okay, I thought the same as you, that this should be completely satisfactory for the black pieces.
Right.
You got everything off the board, symmetrical pawn structure. The computer was giving just clear white advantage.
What?
Clear white, not even a little bit, like clear white. And I think it involved the move h6, just cementing this idea before g4. And I think playing h6 directly.
I thought that was the problem, was there was a pin, right?
Yeah, and I don't remember if it was in this position specifically or before, and then there was some queen a3 idea. It gets you out of the pin.
That's nice.
And suddenly it was not so easy.
And then we talked about the h7, h6 pawn, the alpha 0 pawn on h6, and we saw that in the game of
Nepo yesterday with black pieces, actually.
Yeah, Fabi. But over to you, Maurice. You've got some breaking news for us.
I just want your thoughts on a position, as this position obviously is the game of the round. Rook takes b2 check, king b2, knight a4, king b1, knight c3.
Yes.
King a1, sidestepping, and we played this move, knight takes d1. Right in this position, Maxime has to calculate now, right? Because we mentioned bishop takes e1, queen c5. White can't really go for this position. But if he throws in queen h7 check, where do you put your king?
Let's assume e6 for just a moment.
All right. Now, if you put e6...
I don't have a choice, right? I can't go into the endgame.
Well, this is the question. Okay, so we have two questions. King d8 is one line. Queen g8, king back to e7, trade and play this endgame.
Really?
It's an extra pawn. It's an outside pawn of two bishops. The engines say equal here. Equal, but... How do you feel?
I like white.
I like white too. I don't feel equal in this position. I feel
no.
like the king shows up, the two bishops, and this guy's always on the board. I think the engine is misjudging this, and even if it's judging it right, nobody's going to want to play this if you are black, right? Because you can just see white's never going to lose, and black could easily lose. So this position is the one I was looking at. I said, hold on, which means if queen h7 check, king e6 looks more like the try, but now he can take on d1, and this queen c5 idea, you got a bishop b3 coming. Don't forget, you got a queen g8 idea coming as well. Is this a position you want to play over that endgame?
Well,
these are your two choices.
If I look at queen c3 check, and then I can follow it up with knight c5, I'm not particularly scared as black.
Okay, well...
Knight c5, it stops bishop b3 check.
Now you got a check on the back row?
But
Okay.
this is the kind of position I'm not that scared, because once my knight's on c5, bishop's always defended. You would have to hit my king on my d6 pawn at the same time for me to actually be
And that's going to be
Happy. Well, that's what he's.
But that's what he's after. That's what he's after with
if I
this
go
move.
king e7.
As now this check,
king e6.
Right.
king back to e6, and now you can resign.
Oh, so well, apparently I am scared. All right.
Now you have no threats.
You're hitting,
You have zero threats. The bishop is
E8.
guarding everything. Now
E8 and D6.
D6 is hanging. This square is hanging. You have to be precise. You actually, in this position after queen g7 check, you must go straight back. Only move, giving away your pawn. The point being that bishop d6 is actually met by the winning
check,
queen
yes.
d3 check.
Gotcha.
So, yes, you're right. You are okay, but you have to calculate. And I think he has to calculate from back here.
Yeah, because queen h4 on the board.
This one. You have to calculate from this position.
Right.
And go straight down into this line and say, okay, when I get there, my king is safe on e6. There are no problems. I play queen c3, knight c5, and then after his checks, my king is safe on e8. Come on. That's not easy.
Some accurate analysis for sure.
And we're going down one line. He has to go through everything. He has to check every, that there's no challenges at all. This could eat up a lot of clock time, and that's why he's thinking right now. So by no means is Maxime out of the woods in this position.
Well, luckily for
Very good,
Maxime,
thank you.
he has a lot of time.
He has a lot of time to cogitate over it, whereas his opponent doesn't. By the way, anybody who would like to join our show, we do have a telephone number, Alejandro, for them to call.
Please call us at 314-361-5465. We'll be taking any chess/candidates related questions.
Bring them.
We've had great ones in this show so far.
Yes, we have.
So we encourage you to keep on calling.
Really keeping us on our toes. Now, when we left it, I just wanted to go back to the game of Jan Nepo and Wang Hao here, because you had said that you're coming into the studio, you're looking at the game, and the computer was suggesting h6.
It wasn't in this position. I just don't remember exactly when it was, but it was this idea
of putting the pawn on h6 and escaping this pin with the move queen a3, because after the move queen a3, Roro, we are threatening checkmate in one move, and after king g8, I'm assuming the knight is going somewhere.
Yeah, this was probably the reason it wasn't in this position specifically.
Right.
And then just thought white was better.
Just happy to have the pawn on h6.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of human players are just kind of a little reluctant.
Especially in an endgame.
Right.
You kind of thought this is a good pawn in the middle games. That's how I was brought up. And in the endgame, it just kind of falls.
Yeah, you have to be careful that it just doesn't get swooped up. That was not what Jan did. Jan played g4, a7, a6.
And you can see the subtlety of a6, right? It defends that weakness against the double attack.
Yes, sidestepping a move like queen a3 with that double attack that you just mentioned, g4, a6. Now after b3, queen e6, knight e3. I got to tell you, this is a draw. This is just 7-7.
It doesn't feel like it's anything.
And back over to you, Maurice.
A position that does feel like something, though, is the game between Anish Giri and Fabiano Caruana. America's best looks like he is in some real trouble in this game. After he started the opening, and it was an imbalanced position. As you can see, the pawn formation is quite imbalanced. White has the two bishops. And when you have the two bishops, it's not about your bishop that matches your opponent's. It's about the other one. And this light square bishop is lurking. It's looking for the day when it can create some problems. And we're going to see it create problems after b3, dealing with the one threat black had on this line. Knight h5, and he said, no, we're going to try to lift this blockading piece. G6 was played, trade, and now f4. This king cannot get out of the center so easily. He's, of course, not interested in c-pawns, especially since his own king is under trouble. King f8, trying to castle by hand. And what did we say about this light squared bishop? Here it comes, bishop to e2, rook to h8, and now bishop to d3. The Indians wanted to play more directly with f5 before, but this is also quite strong. The threat is f5, blow open this castled king position, and if that happens, his king will be perfectly safe, but this king is going to face a barrage of white pieces. This is difficult to defend, guys. This looks like problems for Fabi. At the moment, he's also down on the clock. He has to make 14 moves, and seeing his king under threat, the worst part about this situation is he really doesn't have any counterplay. You look over there, you say, what's black doing? Black has nothing to write home about. Black just literally has no attacking plans. C5 would be the only way to try to drum up something, but that probably helps White by opening up the game. In the meantime, you're facing what looks like a very straightforward attack. I'll just play F5, and even if it doesn't work, it just makes perfect sense. Fabi would be in deep trouble. Their lifetime scores is dead even.
Wow.
Gary's not afraid of Caruana, as you can see there. And this last move, this position, I gotta say, I'm not liking Caruana's position at all.
No.
31 duels between them. These two players who've really taken the measure of one another. That's an amazing number. That's more games than I've played against any other player. I think I had like 25 games with Tim on.
And those are just the classical
like 30
matchups.
games with, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't even count Rapid and Blitz.
Wow,
That's
they
really amazing.
really are familiar with
So
it.
this looks really bad, but
Yes.
we have to take a look at Alexenko's game because it's moving so quickly.
Okay.
And it's such a weird position.
I know, it is really a...
So we are going down the path that Maurice has been explaining to us after Bishop F4.
F6, Bishop
F6.
F4,
Yeah,
hitting
Rook
the
takes B2 was played.
Okay, the best defense is a strong offense, I guess.
Certainly no other move but taking the Rook.
Exactly, Knight A4 check, and
B1.
there was no real other squares for the
And
king.
Knight C3 check played.
And now...
He's deciding between King A1 and I'm
King
assuming
B-
King B2,
B2.
and I don't see any other move.
I
He's
did-
played King A1, by the way.
I would have played King B2 one time just to ask my opponent, are you interested in making a draw? With
Well, on
Knight
the other
A4
hand,
check?
there is this check that we had mentioned, and on King A1, Knight takes D1. That's check on the King on B2, which means
Right.
that the variations could have been different.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Knight
so
D1
perhaps-
is check, and then move the queen somewhere. So
And then
you're-
move the queen. So
you
perhaps
are,
he wants-
You are insisting that this is okay for you.
Yeah, so he perhaps wants to play King A1 and force this line of Knight takes D1 and then Queen H7.
All right, let's take a look. King A1, Knight takes D1.
I'm also assuming that this is forced, right? I don't
well,
have, like,
otherwise, why
I
did you
take on
sacrifice a
D6.
rook?
No, that doesn't make sense. You take on
okay.
D1?
And now this is where you're saying you've got
Check.
the intermezzo move, Queen H.
You know,
7 check.
and then we got to that, and I was looking at the endgame. The more I looked at the endgame, the more Maurice put it up, the less I thought it was dangerous for Black.
After Queen G8.
Yeah, Queen G8, King E7, you take on C8, you take on C8.
The this was where the engine said even, and we all went, well,
Yeah.
maybe not so much even. Two bishops and a passer.
Yeah, but then I started looking, and I thought if you start playing move like Knight E5,
Bringing your knight to a nice centralized
right.
square.
My idea is really simple. I'm going to go Bishop E6, D5. I'm going to break up those pawns, and at that point,
You
really-
probably happy,
very happy.
equalizing.
Very happy. I think I've equalized.
Okay,
for that.
so let's assume I've got to move my bishop play.
Yeah, but
that knight on E5 bothers me. It's a good
Why not
beast.
G3 though, Yaz? Because
Sorry, G3. You prefer bishop G3.
Well, you stay out of the range of that stupid knight. Knight D3. I was looking at the same thing. Knight D3 could bother a bishop on C1.
But okay,
with tempo.
I'll play
playing
Bishop
F5
E6.
or
I'll play Bishop E6 or Bishop
Bishop
E7.
E6?
Actually, I like Bishop E7 a little bit more because I have D5 and F5 now that you mentioned
Okay,
it.
right.
F4 now, Knight C4 is a double attack.
Right.
D5 is my next move. This looks extremely drawish to me.
Fair enough.
The more I looked at it.
We have a caller.
Absolutely, we have one caller from Texas. Please give us your name and your question.
Yeah, hi, Yasser and Alejandro and Maurice. This is Rory from Texas.
Hi, Rory.
And my question is for the old-timer Yasser. You remember when Fischer was on the candidates, we all knew the way he was destroying everybody, that he was going to win the world championship and beat Spassky. But
Right.
from what I'm seeing here, I don't see any one of these players that's going to beat Magnus. What do you think about this?
Rory, that's a great question because I mean, it was like the rising star of Bobby Fischer. Boy, you could see him coming from a mile away. A rising star by Juan Gary Kasparov. Man, Karpov could see him coming a mile away. Vichy not. You know, he could see Magnus coming from a mile away. Who's Magnus worried about?
I don't think
Nobody's
he's particularly
dominating
worried
this
about. Yeah, we
event.
live in a kind of a different stage of world championship in that this is the world champion that's dominating.
Right.
And I think this is kind of when there were candidates or the likes to face Gary. I mean, nobody really saw anybody beating Gary.
Right.
And we're in a similar situation. There are people in this tournament that can beat Magnus in a
Very,
match.
very challenging, no question.
I mean, you saw Fabi. It really came
What
down
happened
to
in London.
moments in London.
And even Sergey. I mean,
Yes.
Sergey acquitted himself marvelously well, I felt.
Yeah, so you won't see anything where you think, oh, the challenger is going to dominate.
Exactly.
I think when we saw that Carlsen Anand match, that was such an exception in the world of chess. I mean, Carlsen came as such a clear favorite. Anand had a bad year. Carlsen had a great year.
Right.
So much pressure on Vichy.
Yeah.
But nowadays, with Carlsen being so solidly cemented at number one, it's tough to see somebody just rise up out of nowhere.
Right. Prior to the tournament, Rory, all the experts felt at least that the two players most likely to give Magnus the best tussle were Dingler and Fabiano Caruana. I still think that's the case, but you're making a good point in the sense that whoever the challenger is, he's not coming out of this tournament thus far.
Yes.
I mean, keep in mind 4 rounds of play with like this comet streaking across the sky. Watch out, one Magnus Carlsen. Your time is up.
No, I agree. You look at history. Usually the challenger when he's coming, just everybody's looking at this player and saying, "That's the guy."
That's the guy.
That's the guy. We could see it. That's the one who's the challenge. You almost don't even need to play the match, all this candidate stuff. That's the guy. When Smyslov challenged Botvinnik, he was the guy. I mean, that's just clear. He was the man. He went through both candidates. Zurich, he went through to get there and proved, I'm the guy. He went to, and he tied Botvinnik in the first match. He went to Amsterdam. He did it again. This time he beat Botvinnik for the world title. Botvinnik then came and beat him. And then who showed up in 1959 in Yugoslavia? The meteoric Tal. I mean, the rise was just unbelievable. And he ran away with that tournament, 1.5 points ahead of his nearest rivals. And then he went on and smacked Botvinnik. Botvinnik came, smacked him back. But it's all pretty clear that's the guy. Fischer showed up, that's the guy. And as you guys have already mentioned, Kasparov showed up. It's like,
that's the guy.
That's the guy. Right now, and when Kramnik won, I mean, sorry, not Kramnik, but Carlsen won, we all knew he was the #1 player in the world. It was just a matter of time. Right now, Carlsen is still the #1 player in the world. I actually think, in some ways, in order to be the challenger, you almost have to be the #1 rated guy if you're going to be the new world champion. I think you actually have to take over in rating before people say, well, you're going to beat this guy. You're definitely the new one. I don't think you can be under the champion. I think you have to be either over his rating or approaching, especially if you have a busy world champion, as Carlsen is. He's extremely busy. It's not like, remember the days when Anand, for example, was #1 and everybody was saying, oh, but he's not playing enough tournaments. He's not winning enough tournaments. And people were critiquing that. He continued to win the world championship titles. But then this Magnus Carlsen showed up and said, I'm winning everything, including whatever he's in. I'm the dominant player, so clearly I'm the one who should be world champion. And it took him some time in a precarious candidates in 2013 where he only got through by tiebreak. But since then, he has proven, I am the great king of chess, and I may end up becoming one of the best. Maybe I'm the best player of all time. He's got a ways to go still, but he is definitely in the argument. Right now, nobody except Fabi is close to him in rating. So we'd say Fabi may be the best challenger, as he's already proven. But is Fabi the guy? Not clear yet.
Well, you made an interesting point there. I must say that was like 20 years that Garry Kasparov was #1, but there was like this briefest of moments. There was like one rating list that Vladimir Kramnik was like 2 rating points higher than Gary. There was like that, just like, and you said, oh, well, that's a legitimate challenger. And guess what? In the year 2000, Vladimir did pull off an upset.
It is a great point. That moment where you're the #1 player in the world, I don't think at any moment since Carlsen got that has anybody thought, oh, this one has a chance. Fabi, that moment in 2014.
Right, from the Sinkfield Cup, +7. And he was so close as #2, almost.
Almost there. I remember at the World Championship match, it was, they were like 3 points away?
Yes.
Or something like that in the rating difference?
Right.
So very, very tight for sure. And I think that's the rivalry right now. But if Fabi's playing the way he's doing this candidates,
And let's take a look at
let's
that.
take a look at how he's doing.
Yeah, because
It's
we're not really happy
convincing.
about today. In fact, sorry, folks, we were in studio earlier. We didn't come on, but we were following this game closely, and we were very critical early.
Both players, to be honest.
Yeah, G5 in particular really had us kind of like, what is Fabi doing with the move G? I mean, he's just, let's go back just for a moment. He just played the move knight B6.
Provoking C5.
So that he has a little bit of a tickle with B6, and then queen B8. That looked like a little strange. Then G5, like we're really banging the drum for B6 here. G5, and even here, this is where we really embraced Anisha's position. We liked Anish just going for a pawn sacrifice like this, where we just thought that Fabi would be on the back foot.
Yeah, once I saw E4, E5, and it's such a common motif in this structure specifically, this looks terrible. And the more we analyze it, because you wanted to make a natural move, like Queen C7.
For example.
Let's long castle, get that king out of there.
Easy peasy.
It just loses.
And in a beautiful fashion, too, because after this takes, stop here and think for just a second. You really want to play knight G3. I mean, that's a beautiful pin. You're
Get
really
a pawn back.
Yeah. Let's win that pawn back. But then you think about something else. Suddenly your eye is drawn to the move knight F4. Why? Because the knight is attacking the knight. You go pawn here, and then comes the sacrifice.
And it
Boom.
just explodes. The position is destroyed. But we have some breaking news from the MVL game.
Maurice.
Yes, it does look as though we have a repetition occurring. Queen H7 check, King D8, Queen G8 check, King to E7, Queen H7 check, King D8, Queen G8, King E7, and Queen H7 check. And the game has ended in a wild draw. It is now official. What a game. It usually happens in these explosive positions that they end in draws. And both players, I don't know what they'll be thinking. It looks like Maxime got the kind of position he would want, and he proved once again the knight off is impregnable. I can play it all day for a draw if I want to, and you can't slip up. But Kirill acquitting himself quite well in a position he did not know and managed yet again to draw. He's still only at -1 after 5 rounds, guys. The youngster is proving, I can punch with these guys.
For a wild card, he's proving a lot. He really is.
He's doing very well in this tournament so far.
We have a caller from Pittsburgh.
From Pittsburgh. Hello, can you give us your name and your question?
Hi, yeah, I'm Jason.
Hi, Jason.
So, if I'm seeing these games correctly, this is the first game that we've had a Sicilian, and I find this really surprising because no matter what database you look at, going far back as far as you like, the Sicilian just objectively scores better than the Roy or the Petrov. And I realize while the Petrov and the Roy give greater drawing chances, shouldn't you simply play the opening with the best expected score, which is the Sicilian?
Well, that's a great question.
First of all, I hadn't even realized that was the first Sicilian.
It is the first Sicilian, actually.
I mean, that is really a surprise because the caller is absolutely right that, in fact, the Sicilian is one of the most popular defenses. We've seen Berlin's already in the tournament.
Yes.
But the Sicilian. And don't you objectively just go for what gives you the best chances, Alejandro?
Yes, when making an opening repertoire, there's a column on ChessBase that gives you the percentage wins and percentage yes. The higher I go in the chess world, the more I realize that if there was a possibility to grab a torch and burn that statistic, you just burn it. It is really worthless.
It's misleading.
It's extremely misleading. It doesn't account for risk factors. It doesn't account for rating differences. It doesn't account for so many statistics that are also important and at the same time irrelevant, because there's some lines which are immediately discarded because they have an 80% win rate for white.
Wow.
And you look at the line, and it's just that black didn't find the defense.
Right.
They kept falling for the same thing. But had they known it, the game is just a draw. So this happens very often in a lot of openings. And you'll see very rarely that the 2800s look at that. They're better than these players. Why do I care how they score? Right? It's about my games.
Right.
And the Sicilian is made in such a way that it's just higher risk factor. We talked about this earlier in the broadcast that higher risk doesn't necessarily mean that much higher reward. And in this case, with the black pieces, very often you just want to go for solid, straight. You want to know what's going on. You don't want to fall for preparations. Now, the fact that we haven't had that many Sicilians is a bit of a coincidence. We do have a couple of Sicilian players. We have Nepo as the Najdorf player. Grischuk plays Najdorf sometimes, but he's been playing Berlin exclusively recently.
As well as MBL.
Right. So you just probably have to wait a little bit for Nepo to get black against an E4 player.
Yeah.
I mean, Nepo playing white against Maxime probably will also be some kind of Sicilian.
Tabby's played Sicilians too. Jumping right in here, Maurice, you love your Sicilian.
Absolutely, and I agree. It's just who's playing in the tournament.
Yeah.
It's not about whether or not the Sicilian is good or is it bad. People have their repertoires, and there are players who decide, I am not a Sicilian player. I don't care if it is a decent opening or great opening, so to speak, statistically. It's sharp, it's risky, there's a lot of work involved, and I got other stuff that's good. And that's the stuff I'd rather play. And it makes sense for them, and it's gotten them to where they are in the world right now, which is pretty high up. So, yes, I don't want them bothering my Sicilian. I like the guys who are limited in the Sicilian. By the way, talking about Nepo as a Sicilian player, he doesn't like dead positions, and you might say, not so great for him, maybe, but guess what? C4, time to sack a pawn, which you dare not take. This pawn on h6, we saw this alpha 0 pawn on h6. This king is feeling a little bit of air restriction, that is, and if takes, which did happen, takes, don't grab this one. You're going to get spanked. Queen takes, and now the simple queen to h2, by the way, h2, very critical technically. Now his point is he's going to be threatening to come down into the position, and there's nothing to do. You literally have nothing to do. You're busted. You cannot come back home and help. Things are going to drop in the position. The B pawn is going to drop, or this F6 pawn. I'll give you a line. If you come all the way back, queen to D6, this one is going to be sugar because now you have to guard it, queen to F7, and that only allows this check, and sorry, you're going to get mated. So big problems in this position. So that's why he did not touch the pawn. He played the move king to G8. And now the engines are giving queen G3 and saying, now you're going to get squeezed. The threat of C5, queen coming in. In fact, this looks like a mistake in the position, but apparently not so bad after king F7. You know what this reminds me of? The game between Fabi and Nepo from last round.
Yeah.
Right? It was
With the
that
pawn on h6.
Pawn on h6. Right? And
right.
queen, and actually a lot of the features
Well, it was queen and
Where
bishop.
there was
queen and
bishop.
bishop versus queen and knight.
But there was a pass D pawn for white.
Which could happen here if he plays the move D5.
Right.
Just the minors are different, obviously, and the defense was bring the king to the center of the board, and here comes that king saying, I got to get out of that corner. So very similar features to yesterday's game, this time, of course, with Nepo with the white pieces.
Well,
Yeah, some nice echoes of yesterday. No question about that.
Let's take a quick look at the standings, as we do have one draw already. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave jumps to 3 points. He's the current leader. We probably expect him to at least be caught by, well, he will definitely be at least caught by one of the players, as Jan is, of course, playing Wang Hao.
Exactly.
And if that finishes in a draw, then again, we'll have a 3-way tie, at least depending on the results of the other games.
Fabi.
Which reminds us, how is Grischuk doing against Ding Liren?
Indeed, that game has not caught our eye at all. I'm sorry to say.
so much, and
it's
won't.
been a very solid affair. I'll just come up to the current position, and as you're about to see, the players are in a 3 versus 3. Black has a slightly worse structure after queen g4, rook d8, bishop e3. 3 versus 3, all on the king side. Yes, you can make the argument that the pawn on e5 is a slightly weak pawn. Put it on f6, it's a dead draw. White's slightly better, but this has 99% drawing chances written all over it, I'm afraid.
The problem is that even if you do win that pawn, it's usually still a draw.
Well,
Exactly.
I was going to say, which endgame wins?
Right.
If I win the e-pawn, which one is the only one it looks like that wins?
Maybe a bishop ending?
No, the bishop is a dead draw. None of them win.
None of them win.
No, you
Not
have
a
to keep
queen
all the-
ending, not a
No.
rook, king and pawn ending.
King and pawn is the
got
only
you.
one that
Only
wins.
the king and pawn ending. If you can get me to trade off, you win this
Everything.
pawn, and you get me to trade off everything on that square. The problem is, I'm going to trade a couple of things, but I'm going to keep something.
One thing.
And most likely, I'm going to keep the rook.
Right.
Right. I'll trade bishop, queen, and pawn, but I'm not going to the king and pawn ending. That
Right.
one you can forget about. But if I can keep a piece on the board when we're all said and done,
Right.
you're not going to win this position.
Agreed, Maurice. Alejandro, we have another caller, this one from New York.
Awesome. Well, hello, New York. Tell us your name and your question.
Hi, Yasser, Alejandro, and Maurice. This is Charlie from New York. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Charlie?
Listen, I got a question for you about, basically it's about Wesley So and Nakamura. I remember So and Nakamura for a while. They were in the top, the top 10 players in the world, and they were winning a lot of tournaments. Then it seemed like So went into one of those where I'll just take a paycheck and draw, and he hasn't been the same player. Do you think it's possible that these guys maybe started too young in chess and they get tired of playing, or the money is just better where if you finish in second, it's as much as finishing in first place, because they don't seem to be playing with the same desire that they once had? I just want to get your opinion on that.
Woo, Charlie with a little smackdown on
our poor boy
players.
Wesley,
Straight out of New York, baby.
Wesley rose to number 2 in the world, but let's face it, he has faded a bit. He has not been performing with that same Wesley So. We remember the year he won everything.
2016.
He won.
2016, he won everything.
Your $1 Million Open, Maurice, and just everything. It was amazing. Jump in here with answer Charlie's question for him.
Charlie,
Has he become too satisfied?
Charlie, it's rough at the top. it's rough at the top. You can surge, but to maintain consistency is extremely difficult. Even the year Fabi surged and won 7 in a row in the Singfield Cup, looked like he was the main challenger. He took a step backwards, big step backwards. When Fabi actually won the candidates, he was the number 5 seed in that tournament. It doesn't matter. It's hard at the top. Tell it to Levon Aronian. He was number 2 in the world and couldn't win the candidates, couldn't win regular tournaments, finally started winning again. Why? Because the competition, they're wolves in there. These guys are wolves, sharks. They bring out the knives. They are hungry. They want to come after you. To maintain consistency at that level is a sign of true greatness. And the one person who has done that is the world champion.
Magnus.
And the main problem that these top players face is Magnus. You can win tournaments, yes, congratulations. But when Magnus shows up and says, like he did last year at the beginning of the year, I think I'm going to win 7 in a row. Or maybe it was 8, right? He said, I'm just going to start winning everything. My form is back. Here I come. Even Magnus was inconsistent for a while. You remember a year and a half went by without Magnus winning a super tournament.
Exactly.
That's insane. Magnus, you could have said, well, Magnus has fallen off, until he came back and said, no, I haven't. I was in a little bit of a hiatus, but I fixed my game. Everybody goes through it, but to keep winning at the highest level, especially with the presence of a dominant world champion, you just get tired. It's hard in there. There's so many hungry players. So I wouldn't say they started too young or that they faded. I just think it's rough at the top, and to maintain that kind of consistency is extraordinarily difficult.
It's the nature of the beast.
Especially for a lot of people, like Hikaru specifically, with that example, as we do have the ratings of the tournament.
These are the ratings before the tournament, and this is the updated
version.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Ding Laurent slipping out of the 2,800 club there, Alejandro.
Just by a bit. Van Gaal is suddenly jumping into the top 10. Geary started top 10, is now 13. Not a huge difference. It's of course one of the...
was on the outside looking in on the top 10.
Right, one of the big misses, let's say, of the candidates. Wesley So is not there, another one of those top 10 players.
Right.
But I was talking about Hikaru specifically.
Yes, please.
Hikaru is one of those people that he's an unbelievably talented chess player.
Right.
The problem is he's a really smart guy in many other things.
Right.
In so many other things.
He's distracted.
He's distracted. He's a very successful streamer. He has his investments, and I know that he's really into the stock market.
As well as real estate in Florida, all over the...
I mean, the guy's...
He's climbing peaks.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's also athletic. He's
Yeah.
also athletic.
Like what?
He contributes to causes, as I understand, through his physical athleticism, which you wouldn't expect from a chess player. So, yeah, I think one of Hikaru's main issues is just being distracted by so many different things.
Right.
But a lot of times you wouldn't even be that strong unless there are certain players like that who wouldn't be that strong unless something else was feeding their intellectuality, their physicality, just something else. Because just focusing on chess, they'd burn out. They'd burn out a lot sooner. They're just not that interested.
Maurice, Fabi's played a move that I wouldn't have considered had my life depended on it.
Your life.
Wow. I mean, that's, you're saying a lot there. He played a move.
He started with
took on D4.
Yeah, he started with C5.
That was the reaction I had for you. He took on D4?
Wow.
Opening the bishop? Is that correct?
He did.
And then bishop F6?
That's what he's intending.
Okay, so he has a great defense with bishop F6, and
does.
we're holding on. I'm assuming.
No,
I don't
you're
like
not.
that light bar. I don't like that white bar.
No, bishop
Like
B5
takes.
apparently is deadly.
Takes
Oh.
F5.
That looks good.
But
E5.
But even worse is bishop to B5.
So I have to take on. I don't want to, but I think I have to take on D4.
well, I didn't think you wanted to take on D4 initially, so I guess.
But I think
And I've got
now you have to play
ideas.
knight F6 and defend this.
There's
this
so
pawn.
many threats.
This,
This is awful.
With rook A4 on tap. Don't think you're going to take on F5 and take on A2, because that's not happening. But I am going to play rook to A5, stopping the attack down the A file. Yeah, pardon me. Rook A4 to stop the attack down the A file. And by the way, black's king is suddenly the attention of white's affections.
This is
this
crushing.
looks,
Why would you take on D4? Maurice, jump in here. I think the move C5 was okay, but I was expecting bishop F6.
It's all bad.
It's all bad.
All bad. C5 was necessary.
What's necessary?
C5. Well, you.
I didn't even like C5. I didn't see why you were opening up diagonals.
Well, first of all, F5.
What are you
How are you
supposed to
going
do? Though? What are you supposed to do about what's happening?
I'm not happy with my position, but if somebody
enough.
gave me this position and
Okay.
told me you must defend,
Yes.
I started thinking my knight on D7 needs a better square.
Agreed.
Let's just
Okay.
put it on F6 to begin with. I still have F5, G5 for the moment. I'm hoping I'm not dying immediately. It's ugly.
You
Play it,
might,
and then after bishop G3.
you might be dying immediately. is
I'm
the
not
problem.
happy, but I'll play G4. I'll say, you know, if you take on F6, you have opposite color bishops. You won't checkmate me so easily. I'm not happy. I'm not saying
No,
I'm not saying
no,
I solved my problems. But I look at this position and I think, you know,
it was like one of the funniest things was our very first world champion, Wilhelm Steinitz. He was like a cantankerous guy. He would like, I'm going to defend the most ugly position you've ever seen. And you're like, dude, you're the world champion. Why are you playing this rubbish? I mean, this horrible stuff. I mean, this is a position where you're not saying, hey, I'm so happy to be black.
No.
I mean, you're like, what? You know, you're suffering.
I'm suffering, but I
Right.
look at the position.
But this is the way you think black should have to suffer, like
Yes.
But whereas you think when you see a move like C5,
Well, C5
aren't I
structure.
helping my opponent?
It's structurally bad, right? Because D5
Yeah.
is now undefended.
well, not only that,
the bishop.
yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's what I was trying to play against.
Right. This bishop on E1 is really kind of a septic piece. And when you play the move C5 and you allow bishop C3, you start to think as white, hey, my bishop might be an all-star.
And this engine is apparently not thinking it's so bad for black. So I want to see
And
what
then
the
after the
alternative was.
trade,
No, this is bad. This
But
is
after,
just bad.
but after
This
taking
now
on
is-
D4.
take-
Okay.
But I was thinking,
this is bad.
Okay, if had Fabi played the move bishop F6 and not taken on D4, what's the killer? Probably
I think
F5.
Yeah, F5.
F5 is
Just-
coming mercilessly at all.
Yeah, it just opens too much.
And you're still going
I'm
to suffer here.
taking and.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
no,
no, I don't want to look at this.
Stop.
Stop.
Okay, good.
But look at the game. Look what happened in the game. He didn't find bishop to b5, but what he found was plenty good as well.
Because in the game, he did take on F6.
Yeah, just go back a couple of moves.
I don't know.
This
Bishop
is
D5
where-
looked.
Right, this position. He just took.
Okay, which
Bishop
I
b5
thought
is fine. He
was,
just took. He played f5.
which looks really strong.
Well,
I mean, because
yeah,
the
but
king, right?
If I take on I'm again.
Please, it's not your joy. It's not.
Please do not anybody tell me white's better. I understand.
Yeah, you
White
got
is
it.
better. I'll take on F5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take on F5, and I assume you take on F5 here, right?
Maybe. But,
Okay,
let's just say.
yes, let's assume you're right. You made a good.
All right, and now I want to get my queen to D6 somehow. How do I get it there?
This queen. On
I need to get my
A7,
queen to do something useful. Maybe queen A3, maybe queen E7.
You wanted to get the queen to
my
D6.
goodness,
you said.
this position just looks so delish.
Man, if somebody tells me again that white is better, I swear, I got it.
It's not that white's better. It just looks delish. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to defend, right?
There's
And
a
this
rook
is-
F1 coming.
This is what we're trying to do for black.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I want to put my queen on d6 and somehow hold on to this position.
Okay.
Your threats for now are a little bit vague.
Okay, so let's try just put a move on the board, and Maurice is saying, look, I'm going to play rook f1.
Yes.
I'm playing for bishop e6. I'm playing for, go ahead, put your queen wherever your queen wants to go.
All right, can I start playing queen c5?
Queen c5. Let's say I'm not.
Maybe to d4?
When do I want to trade queens? When
Knight d5?
I was about to play bishop c4, but maybe this
Knight
knight c3.
Yes, was there a bishop e6 siding there when you played?
Oh,
when you
sorry.
played
d4, bishop
I'm just
e6,
curious.
much better.
And b5 has been told has been played by Fabi, not this variations we're looking.
Wow. Okay, let's just go.
B5. That's a move.
Really?
Really?
What?
Why?
It's
Okay.
c5 so
What
much.
we're trying to do is get into the mind of Fabi. What on earth is that move doing?
It opens the
Opens the
queen.
Queen can go to
Queen?
d4 if you put a rook on f1 now. I would
Okay,
say
I think
That has purpose.
the engine did not like that. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
I don't know either.
That has purpose.
Well,
does queen b2?
The problem is, but queen
irritate?
c6 was a problem because
a2 say.
A2's
no. Rook df1, queen d4, queen c6 threatens queen d6.
Oh, that
check.
you mean that?
I'm
does-
sorry. Okay, so in this position,
Rook,
you're
you
saying
played rook df1.
Okay.
You wanted to play queen
d4 just to throw it on the board.
But
yeah.
queen c6. I think I'm threatening queen d6 check, and I probably checkmate.
Yeah.
And I think I'm threatening your rook.
You're
And I think-
definitely
I think
threatening.
you can
And I think I can resign.
Right.
Well, if you're gonna put it like that, okay, you're hitting some sweet spots here, and I don't like it.
I like b5.
Ooh. Alejandro, this is a good time to
Take a
turn our
phone
attention
call.
away and take a phone call.
Oh, yes. Please.
Hello, caller, and welcome to our show. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Rob. I'm calling from New Jersey.
Hi, Rob.
Hi. So I just want to follow up on the previous caller's question. We're looking at 2020 now, but let's look ahead to the 2022 candidates tournament. Who do you think of the up-and-coming players these days will be the top seeds or real contenders, and that will be Ali Reza or that young grandmaster from India? I'll hang up and listen to your answer offline. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. 2022, looking ahead, we still got 2020 to deal with, but I must say that Firouzja, wow, he's really, we're talking about that guy.
Yeah,
I
guy.
mean,
Could be that guy.
That he could be that guy.
He could be that guy.
No question.
Right. Anybody else that well, the India, it's not just like this one player for India. It's like this half a dozen really
be those
promising-
guys.
It could be all of
It
those
could be all
guys.
those
2
guys.
years. 2 years is a kind of a weird situation for a lot of them because they're very talented, but right now they're only 2,600. And
Exactly.
we're not talking about the jump from 26 to 27. We're talking about being 27 for a year to
Right.
qualify to the candidates, and that
then
one is a bit
jumping
tough.
to 28.
Or
Yes.
do it in the Grand Prix series, right?
Or-
You can somehow pull that off.
It seems difficult
which
to
is-
me to
which is
believe that
very hard.
those players will do it. Ali Reza, yeah, he's already 27 plus. You expect him to go up.
explosion.
Yeah, you expect that guy to be in the 2022 candidates. The others, I feel 2024 is a better mark for them. They're still very young. People like Duzbeki, grandmasters, they're what, like 14, 15 right now. Give them another 4 years of preparation. I think in 2, I don't see them reaching a candidates.
2 names quickly for you, Wei Yi and Duda.
Yes, Wei Yi and Duda, very powerful players. Can they make that jump? Because Wei Yi, we've been talking about him like Ali Reza.
Yeah, for
Wei Yi for
Right.
years and years.
Right.
And he stayed 27-20.
which is great.
Which is great. Strong player, nobody's saying that. But is he candidate level? That's
Not
the
yet.
question.
Jump
Not
in,
yet.
Maurice.
Not yet, but when?
But
Yeah.
when? But when? So to me, I mean, the caller answered his own question.
Yeah. I'll wait for you guys to answer.
we didn't have to answer your question because you clearly know enough about the world of chess to know what's up. And it's Ali Reza. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the guy. That's the one that we're saying, can he make that jump and get into the top 10 His talent level is extraordinary. His play is refreshing. I mean, love to watch the kind of chaotic positions he gets into. He needs a few super tournaments, and I'm sure it's a bad time in the world for a player like that who would love to play 5 or 6 invitationals where he can cut his teeth against the best players and see what he needs to do to be solid enough while also using his new creative style, that fresh air. So he can say, yeah, I actually do belong with these guys, and it's my turn to challenge Magnus. This would be a great time for him, but unfortunately, we may see some curtailing of chess events. We've already seen it in the world to give him that opportunity. So 2022 might even be further away just because of that reality alone. And it may be the top players who we see now who will maintain their status. But I see him. He's like a meteor flashing across the sky. When Fischer won that great game against Byrne, the game of the century, the Russians all went, that's the guy. Watch out. He's going to be tough. And then he went, he was invited to all those big tournaments. Tal put a little spanking on him. In Yugoslavia, beat him 4-0. But they knew he was coming. And even then, it took Fischer a while to even get into 1972. 59 when he showed up in the interzonals. And it was 72 when he finally won. So,
well, remember, those were the years of the 3-year cycle. Let me throw you another name at you, Jeffrey Zhang. America's Jeffrey Zhang. How do you feel about Jeffrey?
Me personally, I love Jeffrey's talent, but he's not quite there yet, as far as I'm concerned. He's showing that he's
27 plus.
He belongs.
He's 18. He's very young.
But he's
That's ridiculous.
But I'm saying the guy, in terms of Magnus, Fabi, Jeffrey's right there. He just needs a little bit of a boost.
Jeffrey's the other kind of player that I think 4 years.
Exactly, but I think it's a little bit more time as he gets more something. Yeah. There's a little something extra you got to wind up so you can make that rocket boost and belong in the 27.
I'm going to throw a name out there that is completely on the opposite spectrum.
Okay.
Somebody that's improved despite age coming to him.
Yeah.
And that's Linier Dominguez.
Wow, agreed.
He's become a top 10 player.
Yeah.
He's become a solid top 10. He's been top 10 quietly for the last few rating lists.
Yeah. I've always referred to America's bevy of talent as the Trinity, the Holy Trinity. But now it's like the four men of the apocalypse when our Olympiad team strides in with Linier.
Which we're hoping there is an Olympiad.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's gotten a second win of his career.
I mean, if you want some inspiration that can I become world champion after this, look at Linier. He's had to spend a couple of years not traveling, not playing.
As he transferred from Cuba.
And he's put the smackdown on a lot of people recently. He's crossed 2750. He's held his rating up there despite playing many tournaments. He went to the Russian league and destroyed the tournament. I mean, he's really shown. He's up there right now.
And not only that, through the U.S. Championship, one of the things that I really admired about was consistency.
Very strong.
Where's his blunders? I mean, he's not just handing these guys points.
Not at all. And these people, just because they get old, doesn't mean they just stop playing chess. They get stronger.
Great call. Breaking news, Maurice.
Well, Linier is an example of what I was talking about at the beginning of the tournament. The people who win have to have hunger and form. And when you have been playing chess for a couple of years, you're hungry. You're hungry. You don't want to go in there with the hungry lion. And he has shown that he wants to win, and his form has been excellent. But I need you guys to remind me of a quote we recently heard. I think it was Nakamura, but I'm not sure. It's one of the top players said that this generation has forgotten how to play attacking chess. Was it Naka who said that?
Wow.
Somebody.
Another smackdown.
I think you were here, Yasser. I think he said it while he was sitting in the chair with me interviewing him.
This generation
we've forgotten how to play attacking chess, but because the defensive skills are so good now, and the computer has taught them so well how to defend that they no longer have their attacking chess skills as sharp as it used to be. I'm pretty sure it was Nakamura. I might be wrong. Remembering, but I know I heard the quote.
Okay.
I know I heard the quote. And Naka says controversial stuff. But his point is, you don't really win with attacking chess so much anymore because these guys are such great defenders. So that said, Giri is not known as the most flamboyant attacker you've ever seen in your life. And in this position, you see b5 on the board, and you're thinking rook f1. You're thinking queen b2 along the line, diagonal. You're thinking some pressure move. And Giri, his style said, I'm going to play a quiet one. I'm going to play rook h2. I'm going to guard this square so my queen can move. Now, the Indians had other moves completely eviscerating black. Queen b2 was a starter. Your instinct, Yasser, you said queen b2, let's go for it. This one, it says, well, he's still definitely better, but you've given him a free move, rook e8. He's going to start consolidating a bit more, although he's still worse. Even the move h5 was quite strong. The response, rook h5, came on the board. This
goes h5.
Right. This kills h5 for sure. And now it's back to Giri needing to think about this position. You know, pieces are going to come. As you mentioned, Alejandro, he wants to start protecting his king. He wants to bring a rook over. He gets his queen on d6. He wants to just put everybody, all hands on deck. The king is in trouble. We need to harmonize. So Giri can't just keep playing quiet move after quiet move after quiet move, because black's going to consolidate eventually. And this move, by the way, also hits the bishop. So you can't move with your queen.
c6.
You know, you guarded your pawn, but now your queen's not released because the bishop is hanging for the moment.
Well,
so black's going to get a couple of moves.
I have a question for the engine.
Yes.
Why is rook f2, rook f1 not just winning?
Well, rook f2 is definitely a very strong move, and according to the engine, the best move in the position. So black is still in trouble. Don't get me wrong. Black is still in trouble. And stylistically, this fits Giri.
Yes.
Again, he's not going to be flamboyant. He's not going to be sacrificing all those lines. No, if it comes, yes, he'll do that. But he's the kind of guy who's like Karpov. I'll suppress whatever dreams you have, any fantasies. I'm going to make it very clear to you that you're still asleep, stay asleep, and I'm just going to build and crush you. Fabi's still in a lot of trouble in this position.
Let me jump in and say we've got a caller, this time from Israel, overseas. Hello, Israel. Your name and your question, please.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, hello. Welcome to our show.
Oh, hello. My name is Jonathan, and I'm from Israel.
Hi,
and first of all, I really, really appreciate you guys, your show and your comments.
Thank you.
And really enjoying it. And I wanted to ask if you prefer this kind of setup where the candidate for the world champion is decided through a tournament rather than through candidates matches, like Fischer had to play against Petrosian and against the others.
Right. Well, thank you. Oh, sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'll listen to your answer offline.
Well, thank you for the question, Jonathan. Quite definitely, we've been talking about the history and the cycles over the course of time. So if you go back to the end of World War II, and the fact is that they had these candidate tournaments to find the challenger, in this case to Botvinnik. And they kept that system more or less until Bobby Fischer made the great complaint that the Soviets are colluding in the tournament against me. They're cheating. And to stop that collusion, then they went to the matches. After the fall of the Soviet Union, people kind of like looked around and said, you know, that those candidates tournaments were really pretty good events. And furthermore, it's kind of hard to organize all of these matches. These match play made the cycle like 3 years in length.
It was very long, yeah.
Right, exactly. So there's historical reasons, there's financial reasons, economic reasons. I personally, I have to say, I love match play.
I love it too.
I really do. I really do. But having said that, once I saw that 2013 London tournament, that was one of the most exciting tournament events I've ever seen in my life, and I became a big fan of the candidate of the tournament system
the
as
tournament
well.
system, yeah.
I like both. I'm on the fence. I'm sorry.
I like both. I really like knockouts. I don't like those matches where it's just so difficult to organize one here, one there. I didn't like that system where it was just kind of spread out. It didn't feel cohesive.
Okay.
I like that right now we have the candidates and boom, somebody out of this will come out ahead. Now, if this was a match format, I wouldn't mind that either. For example, the way the Grand Prix system works, where you have these matches and it's a knockout, mini matches, if you will.
Right.
Maybe you can have them a little bit longer because it is the candidates, maybe 4 or 6 rounds per match.
4 games.
You still only have 3 rounds anyway of total amount of matches. So it could be doable. I would be open to other ideas, but I like this system.
Right.
I don't like the system so much that the world champion is just waiting at the end.
Exactly.
That is the part that I don't like. I know Magnus himself doesn't like it. He's mentioned that it's a bit unfair towards his opponents. He's even proposed a knockout system, which I thought was a bit extreme, but it's the idea has been thrown out there. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion. I think every system has flaws, but this was pretty cool.
Okay, all things considered. Maurice, jump in.
Breaking news.
Breaking. Ooh, I see you got the Wang Hao Nepo game up on your board, Maurice.
Yes, indeed. And it looks as though Jan Nepomniachtchi is winning the game.
Ooh.
Winning. C5 was played by Jan after the king marched into the position. And now knight to b5, queen b8, check. Queen b8, excuse me, threatening queen b7 with check. And in this position, there were defenses. Knight takes d4 is one. Queen e7 is one. One that is not a defense, however, is the move queen d7. Looks very natural,
Queen
guards
H8.
the pawn and attacks this pawn. The problem is the move queen h8 is extraordinarily powerful. Now he might feel like this move, that looks reasonable, that'll save me.
Yeah.
The problem is the wild f4. F4, now F4 of course is threatening mate. That's a mate coming, all right? That's a pawn that's hanging. So you would think, well, what if I take this pawn? Now this is going to be really sharp to calculate, obviously. Knight takes,
check.
We toss in a queen g8 with check. Nothing else to do. You don't want to hang this pawn. King e7, give me the pawn, trade queens, push pawn. Too easy. So after this move, you must, no other choice, block with the queen.
F5.
And now look at this nasty move. Queen to d8, hitting the knight. We got a queen d6 mate on tap. Watch out. How do you defend everything? Now queen d7, that does guard everything, except now you can play the move f5, takes on f5, takes on f5, and you can't guard your queen. You've got to play knight takes, queen takes, king takes, and that's going to be all she wrote. Now, all those moves were not totally easy, but there is indeed a win there. And we do have with us one Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Say hello, Maxime, in Yekaterinburg.
Yes, hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello,
How are you?
Maxine. Thank you for joining us. What a game you had today.
What a treat you gave us. Tell us about it. Where did it start? Where did it end? When did you start thinking, actually, in this game?
Oh, I did start to think. I mean, there were some lines where I was not going to have to think at all, but Kirill avoided the most obvious draws. And so at some point I got compelled to think about it and to see whether I had a win somewhere. But I don't think that ever was the case. So Kirill took his time, but I think he played reasonably well.
Reasonably well. It was such a complicated position. It seems both of you were finding such extraordinary resources, especially for him. You felt he gave you a blow. Rook takes g6, instantly rook takes c3. Knight takes c6, instantly queen c8. That must be so unpleasant as a player facing such a well-prepared player in such a sharp line.
Yeah, but the thing is, I wouldn't play g6 unless I was prepared for at least the most obvious continuation. So once I mean, the surprise for him was that I could play g6, but once I did, he realized that, I must have done my homework.
You certainly did, and even though you did, in fact, show that your homework was really, really good, we were excited by this extraordinarily sharp game. What for you were the key critical moments after the sacrifice, Maxine?
I think, rook h6 is a critical try for white. Take, rook c2. And here I thought if white wants to have a chance, you have to go rook takes d6.
Sorry, what?
He have to play rook takes d6 at once. I see.
Here, yeah.
And how? Wow. Okay. Okay. And how did you anticipate the game continuing after rook takes d6?
Well, I knew this should be fine for me, and I was looking forward to spending my 1.5 hours to figure out what to do. I think knight a4 is natural, but Then maybe rook d2. I mean, at least it is playable for white. It should turn out to run equal, I would say.
That's
Aha. So for you, rook takes d6 was a critical moment.
I thought so.
Okay.
Or like knight f5, king e8, rook takes d6, of course, is also possible.
Knight f5, king e8,
And
rook
the
takes
takes on
d6.
d6, yeah.
Also.
And I think the point is if you go knight a4 here with black again, knight g7, king d8. Also, I could play king f8, of course, rook d7, queen d7, and king c2, queen c6 check.
Wow.
Well, hello. Nice line.
Yeah, and it's just a piece. Well, some compensation, but probably not enough.
Yeah, nice line, Maurice.
Yeah, Maurice, you want to jump in here?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely amazing game. Have you had a chance to look at the other games? It looks like Nepo has indeed found Queen H8, and this looks extremely dangerous. Your thoughts on Nepo's play so far, as he could take the lead now and be ahead in the tournament?
Yeah, he's been impressive so far. I mean, but he's Nepo, so like he will always play fast, and sometimes he should have gotten punished for it. So, it's only the beginning of the tournament. He wrapped up some points, but in his game against Sasha was very strange. So you never know what can happen with him.
Right.
Yeah, rook b1. I mean, that's not in my notes, and I do know this line quite well.
As we saw. Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you about that. We had this wonderful win we found for you with the help of an engine. Yeah.
Yes.
Were you able to consider it? Maybe we can pull up the game.
Maybe.
As we had the game with Gristrick yesterday, I'm sure somebody told you about rook e4 and taking on c4.
No, of course. The thing is, during the game, I just didn't see that rook e4 was threatening with take c4. And the reason why is I was considering this line where you attack the bishop, but I was mostly considering rook f4.
Okay, if
And
we
then
give
don't
us
have
just
rook
1
takes
second, we
c4.
can bring it up on Maurice's board so we can follow.
I don't know if you can
have it
Yeah,
here.
as Maurice has it, we can switch.
Okay,
yeah.
so knight takes, you were
hear you.
saying, after knight takes a4, you were thinking what?
Rook f4 is what.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to attack the pieces, I wanted rook f4 to avoid some bishop e6, and then, of course, you can go b5. You avoid bishop e6, but
sorry.
Yeah, because on here you don't have rook takes c4, rook
You no
f7 is
longer
a
have it
possibility.
because f7 is not hanging.
So I also consider rook e4, but I didn't realize that I was threatening with take c4.
Right.
And that was when I played a4. And also, instead of a4, I first wanted bishop e3. I mean, I have to mention this line.
Yeah.
And then knight a4 is fine for black, but I was worried about knight d7.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that I missed this e6, bishop e6, and no, I let you finish.
Is there a check? No, there's no check.
Bishop
there.
d4 with rook f7.
There's bishop c5
Always-
maybe,
Oh,
but
bishop
I-
c5 with
and
rook f7.
but I don't know if that's enough.
But
You could
bishop d4, you're attacking g7, you're
Yeah,
threatening
maybe
rook
bishop
f7.
d4 is just bishop d4 is just.
I'm not saying anything.
You've got a very nice smile, Maxime.
Maxime knows the move, and I have to know the
Look
move
at
as
that
well because
satisfaction.
I'm
He knows us that position. Like this guy's can't find it.
You're torturing our commentators.
It's so sweet. It's
Nice.
so sweet.
You should be nice to
I
the
think bishop
commentators.
d4, knight f6 is fine for black, but Maurice,
I
you?
can.
it's-
The engine clear the cobwebs. The beautiful rook takes
Ooh.
f7, bishop takes, and the
Double
line,
check.
Mate on e7.
bishop check. You can't go to f6. Oh my God! It's not every day you see a gorgeous mate like that one.
That's nice.
That's really pretty.
Nasty. And of course, you
Yeah.
go here, then gift us this guy,
Yes.
and the whole thing collapses.
The romantic
Beautiful,
school.
beautiful line. Thanks for sharing that one with us.
Wow. So
So where
You
were
would have
we? We're
won the
back.
brilliancy.
No, but yeah,
Maxime.
knight a4
But-
it turns out. Knight d7, e6 crushing.
I'm not sure
That's great.
whether Sasha would have played knight d7 or knight a4.
Right.
he was under severe time pressure by
Could
that
I ask you,
point, but I
Maxime?
guess, as
May I
always.
ask you in this position here when you did play a4, and he took, were you just very clear that you wanted to play bishop a3? Like your point was a4 to play bishop a3, so
Exactly.
rook e4 just wasn't really on the agenda.
Yeah, exactly. Rook e4 was not on the agenda. I saw this position after rook takes c5, and I thought I was still slightly pressing, and I didn't find any other way to punish his play.
Yeah, that's what I suspected, that once we get our minds a certain way, it's very hard to just switch and go back in the other direction. But definitely fantastic.
And then he found this a5 idea, and then I don't think I have anything.
Yeah, indeed. Very, very difficult. Before we let you go, your thoughts about how Fabi's doing against Giri? It looked like he may have made some mistakes there.
But he might be back.
Well, I mean, his position was very suspicious from the start, I thought.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know how things completely transpired, but of course his position is very difficult. I mean, it doesn't look as bad as it did before that, but it's still probably pretty dangerous.
At all, but I might be wrong. What's wrong with 93? If we can just analyze a little bit.
It looks like there's some tactics suddenly.
Which tactics? Rook c8 I'll take. I'll hide on e7. As long as I have the dark squares, I'm going to make an argument that I'll hide in them.
Well, at least your knight is anchored, yeah?
Rook c1 after king e7.
So we're looking at something like this.
I don't have enough control.
And Maxine is offering you rook c1.
Rook c1.
And by the way, we're hunting king.
It does look very dangerous.
I mean, there's still knight d5. And then I go rook e1 check, probably.
With a knight c1 check idea?
93, I guess I have to go back.
Yes, and then I have all the luxury in the world to find a good move. But at the same time, your king is somewhere under control, so it's very possible that this is okay for black.
Ooh, well, that's the first good news we've gotten for Fabi all day.
Indeed it is.
Yeah, his position was really looking terrible.
Before we let you go, your thoughts overall about the players. Who in your mind has distinguished themselves? You're comfortable with your score. You've been tied for first. Just your overall perceptions of the candidates thus far.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the way I played so far. In general, with the way also my preparation held up its own, because of course that was a question mark before the tournament started. Sure. But you know, I have good workers,
and they're working hard right now.
They're happy to hear you say that. You'll blame them if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, but they'll ask for a raise.
What? They'll ask for a raise. Yeah. Yes, be careful. They'll ask for more money.
No, that was settled before.
Okay. Maxine, as always, thank you for...
We'll see about that if there's a match in Dubai, but...
Very, very nice. A match in Dubai. Okay. Maxine, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
it's been our pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now. As we get ready for our first break, just tell us, Maurice, is Nepo about to go +2?
Indeed, it does look as if +2 is on the way. Queen f7 has been played. He's been thinking for some time here in this position. He does have two options, Queen d8 or Queen c8. It's nice when you got two different moves. But either one, this really is compelling. The next move, because this king has nowhere to go, and the threat is f5.
Well, Queen d6 is
and
not a bad threat
Queen d6 and Queen d4. All these threats are hovering. All these are settling in. And if you play the move Queen d7, as we mentioned,
it's the same line.
We still have this problem.
F5.
Actually, it's funny, the Indians want to repeat. They want to play check and then go back and then play f5. Very weird to see that line, torture from the Indian. But takes, knight takes. Obviously forced.
That's the piece.
And thank you very much for a piece. You can go home. The other line here after Queen d8.
Not so sure.
Knight b5 is also playable. And now this suggests this move. You no longer have this response, as f5 will come at you very quickly. Takes. Your king has to back up. And look at this win. Queen back. Yeah, with your king totally trapped. Captures is happening. Check. Pawn's going to queen. You're going to get crushed in this line as well.
Queen
so
d4.
We have. You want to play? You want to play some moves?
Yeah.
Queen d4.
Not really, because I see the white thermometer. But
well, I just explained the line, so we can go down this position.
And I guess Queen G.
Queen G.
I wanted to put the king on d7, so you don't have a tempo.
King to d7. and now more marching towards your king. Sooner or later, the queen's going to get on e6.
Well, maybe you could even go to e6.
You could probably go to e6 and then just go h7. I don't really see how to stop that.
We'll go with that one.
Right, that
King
looks
moves.
kind of
that looks very convincing
forcing.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about how nice the pawn on h6 is to have so that you can checkmate on g7.
But also, it's a fast pawn. Once you take h7,
it's fast.
It's very fast.
It's very fast.
I know we want to go into break, but really quickly, what is Yekaterinburg? Because the moves that Maxime were recommending are on the board.
Wow.
Rook c1 already played. There is a deadly threat of rook c7 check.
Knight d5 is forced.
Knight d5 does look pretty forced.
Knee-jerk reaction was
It's also kind of threatening knight c3. It's
Absolutely.
not an empty move.
Oh, it's offense and defense.
Well, that Nakamura quote comes back.
Is it?
I'm, if it's not Naka, let me know, please, Hikaru, if you hear this. But I think it was him saying it to me about the attacking skills of this generation, because Giri has thrown away all his advantage. Giri literally went from devastating, crushing attack. You remember that position? You said, let's play rook f2.
Yeah, well, rook h2 was also
where
kind
was it?
of
Rook
soft...
h2. Said rook h2. We thought, okay, but rook f2 was really strong still. He played rook e2.
That move I didn't understand. Why do you want the rook on the e5?
I wanted to hit the knight. I wanted a queen b2. I wanted to
direct attacking
kill
move.
the king.
Yeah. Instead, another waiting move, a la Fabi from the Ding Laurent game, like an h6 soft move.
Yeah.
This one, rook e2, was also soft. He gave the d5 square to the knight, and then the knight, what a nice move.
Knight g4.
Knight g4.
Yeah, such a nice move.
Hitting the rook, and thanks for the tempo. Let's trade off a pair of rooks like I wanted to. And now rook c1, and all Fabi has to do now is find this very nice move. I say all he has to do, he only has 5 minutes and change to play, but he has 2 more moves, only 2 moves.
Yeah, not so many.
So not so bad. He is fine, finally, in this position. This could have been an absolute, unmitigated disaster, but not going to happen. And it looks like we got a replay of a smile here. We've seen this.
We got to set it up,
before.
because what he did is he put us on the spot.
Yeah.
He said, look at the checkmate. I leave it to you. And we were struggling a bit.
You can see how much
before
I
you
love
saw.
chess.
I think you were the first to spot Bishop E7 check and mate. Guys, we're going to get to a break really quickly.
We're going to actually go to a Count's Corner.
Okay, on the break.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. That's what we're going to do, and we'll see you on the other side of the break.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Count's Corner. We have some amazing matches going on in today's round. Of course, we have the tactical slugfest between Alexeyenko and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, which most likely is going to end up in a perpetual. And of course, we have the very tense affair between Anish Giri and Fabiano Caruana. But another game that caught my attention was the one between Grishchuk and Ding, because there has been some very interesting discussion going on, especially in the opening phase of this game. And let's dive straight into that. Grishchuk has been very successful all the way up until 2017 against Ding. He has beaten him quite a few times, and especially with the opening moves of d4 or knight f3. With e4, he hasn't been as successful. Actually, it was Ding who won one of their encounters in the same opening that we are seeing today being played on the board. So e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5, a6, bishop to a4, knight to f6, castle, bishop to e7. And we have seen this game already being played 3 times in the database between these two guys, and of course one of them today. And in previous encounters, we have seen Grishchuk choose this variation as well, with the move d3, defending the pawn on e4 with the pawn. And this kind of asks blacks Black a question. Is he going to go d6 or is he going to continue with b5? The problem is you cannot go castle because then most likely you can even lose a pawn. With bishop to c6, you take, knight takes e5, and the pawn on e4 is protected. So of course you have to protect this pawn on e5 somehow. You have the option of playing d6, like I've said, or b5. b5 was played in their encounter, bishop to b3, d6, a4, and this is the very important discussion that I want to have with you guys. This type of structure I want to understand. b4, a5, and we will see there's a big difference between this game, which was played a couple of years ago, and the game that we are seeing today between these two gentlemen. Castle, bishop to e3, h6, knight bd2, rook to e8, c3, bishop to f8, h3, and now we will understand the biggest difference between the structure that we have today and this structure with an early a4, b4, and immediately a5, trying to stabilize a weakness on a6. The problem is that this pawn on a5, despite the fact that it's taking a lot of space for white, is gaining a lot of space for white, it could also become a liability in the future. And this is exactly what Ding has done. He played the move rook to b8, rook to e1, b takes e3, b takes e3, and now the bishop, with the bishop on c8, ready to jump to e6 and try to challenge the bishop on b3. And with the open file, this is a completely different position than what we're seeing today. This rook b5 maneuver is very important in this structure. And with the bishop on b7, black is not going to have it as easy. And this bishop is most likely going to be stuck to the defense of the pawn on a6. But right now, after d5, queen c2, immediately I'm able to challenge this light square bishop on the g8, a2 diagonal, and the rook is ready to jump to b5. And we've seen Ding being very, very successful with this approach. Let's go back a few moves because we have seen another game. So in today's game, instead of d3, we are seeing Grishuk play the move rook to e1. Defending the pawn with the rook and keeping the option of d4 in one move alive. b5, bishop to b3, castle, and now in a previous game we've seen Grishuk play the not the move h3. We have seen Grishuk play the move h3 today. In a previous game, we have seen Grishuk play the move a4, once again striving for this structure. a5, the problem is, once again, the bishop is on c8, is not yet ready developed on b7. And after d3, bishop e6, immediately challenging, once again, the bishop on the light squares. And black didn't have any problems in that game either. Rook to b8, rook to b5 came, and the pawn on a5 became a weakness. And it seems like Grishuk is trying to avoid this type of structures at all costs. So today we have seen Grishuk take a completely different approach, play the move h3. Of course, the main line is c3. The problem with c3 is that you're going to allow the marshal. And Ding has been playing the marshal not very successfully, especially in his last two games. In the last one, he lost against Rajabov in the World Cup. He also lost last year against Magnus Carlsen. So I was expecting Grishuk to see him try to capitalize on this apparent weakness in Ding's repertoire. But he decided to avoid the marshal, and he played this move h3. Now the problem is, if you go d5 as black, I'm just simply going to take, you're going to take, I'm going to capture the pawn, and due to the fact that I don't have the pawn on c3 yet, I'm going to be able to immediately get the knight out via c3. This is just a much better version of the marshal, and is considered not to be a sound sacrifice for black. For this reason, black has a couple of other options. He can play d6. The problem with d6 is that I'm just simply going to go c3, and right now I'm getting what I want. I'm getting the main line of the Ruy Lopez, but without giving you the option of entering the marshal. So Ding decided to play the move bishop to b7, And right now, we're starting to understand the big difference between what we have seen before in the encounters between these two players and what we are seeing today. Bishop to b7, d3, d5, take, knight takes d5, knight bd2, queen to d7, a4, and once again, we see this structure, but fortunately for white, after b4, a5, the rook will have a very difficult task reaching b5. The bishop on b7 is not perfectly placed, despite the fact that it's set on a very nice diagonal. The problem is there's a lot of pieces in its way, and there's not a lot of targets. This bishop is actually a much better strategically defensive piece via c8 to e6 to try to challenge the light square bishop on this diagonal. Unfortunately, he's a long way from there, and the bishop on b7 is just simply not a very good piece. As white, I'm going to put the bishop on c4, then jump with the knight to b3, solidify this weakness on a6, and I'm just having a much better strategical position. And this is exactly what we have seen from Grischuk. We're seeing him being quite successful in today's game. He has a very annoying pressure. Let's see if Ding is going to be able to save this game.
Welcome back. It is the 5th round, but we have breaking news with Maurice Ashley.
Indeed, we do, and this is going to be absolutely monumental, huge for the tournament as Queen C8 check, Queen D7. He said, no, let's repeat like a cat playing with a mouse. Queen to D8, that's the killer blow with the threat of Queen D6 made on the table. F5 check, takes, no choice here, and now knight takes on F5, and it is his move is Nepo. We expect to see the move Queen takes, D7, King takes, and Knight takes. And this ending, King E6 could be played, Knight to E3 is what we project as the best move. This is just busted. This is just straightforward busted. You got two problems. The knight can either hit on b7 or it can hit on h7. You got two weaknesses that if you go one way, he's going the other way, and it's just too fast. In the meantime, the king will march into the game and prove to you that you have zero play. These pawns are just horrible. This backward b pawn will be the death of him, and we actually do have the position on the board after king to e6. We expect this killer retreat of knight to e3, and with this win, Nepo will go to +2 and take over sole lead in the tournament. Other players will have to giddy up so they can try to stay in range, because we know in these tournaments when someone gets hot, they can be very hard to catch.
Well, this is the current standings. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave currently the leader with 3 points. We're expecting that he will be leapfrogged by Jan Nepomniachtchi, who will reach 3.5 out of 5. Wang Hao will stay at 2.5, though, as we expect that game to end in a draw.
And that will give us a first clear leader?
The first clear leader of the candidates of 2020 will be Jan Nepomniachtchi. After 2 victories, saving that game yesterday, we can say it was a save against Fabiano Caruana.
Well, I'm still thinking of the Grand Chess Tour in Zagreb, where Jan started really, really hot. 3 out of 3. Yes. And Juan Gary Kasparov asked the question, has he played Magnus yet?
Yeah.
There's no Magnus in this tournament.
There is no Magnus, but it wasn't just Magnus that Nepo lost against in the Grand Chess Tour. He ended up on a +3 after the first half of the event.
Right.
And then actually a -3 on the second half to finish on 50%, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So he did kind of crash and burn.
He did it in the second half. But talk about Jan for a second for us, Maurice. How do you rate his chances? It's nice to be in clear first.
It's absolutely nice to be in clear first, and I don't think it's fair to just talk about Zagreb. Jan has shown that he can win big-time tournaments. All right, big dog tournaments, and he has played the move knight to e3. This position is virtually resigns now, like resign, and it looks like the game is over. Wang Hao has resigned, Nepo is now in clear first. He has won heavy-duty tournaments against elite players, and he has proven time and time again that he can do so. There's no question that he is one of the favorites, and the fact that he's now +2. Fabi is sitting on 50%. Ding Liren is going to be sitting on -1. Those are the 2 players in this tournament higher rated than he is. That means to me his destiny is really in his hands. If he could just keep a couple, he just needs a couple more. If he goes to +4, I mean, who's gonna do that? Somebody's gonna have to catch fire to get to him. So right now, after 5 rounds, with 9 rounds to go, he's just going to bide his time, and if he can get a couple more, that's going to be a big-time number. Now, I got you. It's not easy to do. He has shown instability in the past, but today's the candidates, and I tell you, hunger and form and a little bit of luck. You save that game against Fabi, those are usually the signs of somebody who could win the tournament.
Well,
Carpe diem.
I do have a question, because I am blanking out at the moment. I'm sure that you guys will come up with the answer quickly. But which round robin has Nepo won?
Well, I didn't say any round robins. Round robins, you're being really specific. What about
round robins?
Vaikonze, but he actually lost in the last round to Wesley. Wesley won that Vaikonze. Not a round robin, but of course in Jerusalem.
He won the Grand Prix. A massively important tournament. He defeated
MVL also.
MVL on the way. He defeated Wei Yi in the finals.
Exactly.
To claim that one, which he needed to get to the candidates.
Precisely. I mean, everything had to work out perfectly. I just want to make a quick point here that I would be furious with myself. Wang Hao losing this specific position, this ending. To all the world, it looked to me like this was even. But after the move h6 followed by c4, this is where Nepo found like every move was just.
It was beautiful. Just every way. Every single move putting pressure. C4 here, h6 there, queen h2,
here's the
diagonal on the king.
Here's another pice of the puzzle. This is another good one.
It's very geometric.
It is. And it was a beautiful completion of a game I never saw, but once you saw this move, queen h8, you knew who had the initiative.
Well, queen d7 was a mistake, but you need a mistake in order to win chess games.
Absolutely.
And if you're putting your pressure on your opponent, if you're saying move after move, the guy's got to find a move.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Not your fault you made a mistake, but you prompted it with pressure.
Yeah, it's not that the mistake came out of nowhere. It's Nepo was making good moves. He was putting pressure. He was putting pressure there, and that's what you're trying to do. You crack your opponent under pressure. Wang Hao was not able to withstand it, And here we are.
Exactly. And
huge result. Huge result.
Bravo for Giannis.
Oh yeah, Russia must be thrilled.
Oh man, they're doing cartwheels. Remember what Arkady Dorkovich, the FIDE president, he was sitting there like, are we going to have a representative in the candidates?
Yeah.
They ended up with three. But it was touch and go about 6-7 months ago who was going to represent, and there is Jan.
And Jan, by the way, round one played a masterpiece, we all agree.
Yes.
A masterpiece
With Anish Giri.
against Giri.
Yeah, that was one of the best games.
That's just
Exactly.
The way that he controlled the situation this masterfully in the end game.
Nice.
Just
But
the
also
entire game. The
dealing
entire
with
game.
the prep, dealing with
Dealing
the
with the
prep,
prep,
torrential prep coming at you like just snowballs landing from out the sky, and for him to be able to handle all that, keep his equanimity, his focus, and then come back with blows. Remember that move B5? Just out of nowhere saying, no, I'm not just sitting there taking your preparation. I'm going to push. And then the beautiful technical endgame that he played, that was indeed a masterpiece. And now this one, I might say Karpovian in nature. Not too much of anything. Might look equal, but how about this move? How about that move? Defend from multiple angles. He has played two incredible games so far. As far as I'm concerned, he is the class of the tournament at the moment. Well, it's easy to say. He's also got the best score. So that's easy to say, but he's not doing it by accident. He's doing it with good play. And yes, he did a couple of things we look at and say, well, that didn't look quite right. But we know you also have to be lucky in these tournaments. You can't just play perfect chess for 14 rounds. You can point to everybody who's won this before. Well, maybe Anand might have said, well, I didn't lose any games. I was +3 without a loss in my candidates. But usually you lose on the way. So far, Nepo looking very good.
Well, I just also boldly point out the obvious. A couple of years ago, the world champion wanted to work with Jan and had him as a coach second, somebody he respected a great deal.
Oh, well, Jan, the way that he injects creativity to a lot of positions is really, really outstanding. When he works hard, he finds unbelievable resources. A lot of the Grunfeld theory nowadays revolves around his ideas. He's also a very experienced Najdorf player, and you see the work and passion that he puts into the game of chess, and he's so resourceful.
I see him playing, I see him playing Blitz a lot, and it's sort of like he's very creative, and he comes up with, he's kind of a kinetic calculator. He just, and it's impressive.
Yeah, even at this level, he plays so fast that he puts pressure on his opponents, and he's not afraid to get into these complications and say, I've played so fast, maybe I'm not in the greatest position, but guess what? You have 3 minutes, you have to figure out the moves, and he's won a lot of games against strong grandmasters like that. I remember in the World Cup, he was playing a game where he was just busted, like totally busted, but he played so fast, and at some moment, his opponent has one move that wins and everything else loses.
Whoa.
And just his opponent didn't have the time, wasn't able to calculate properly, chose the wrong move, and Nepo ended up winning and advancing further in the World Cup. He did that similarly in Croatia against Fabi. Questionable game, but fast, and it came down to it. Fabi didn't calculate it. He slipped, and then Nepo came back and won.
Right.
And it's a very practical style, combined with a lot of work in chess, a lot of fresh ideas, and it gives sometimes some great results. What happens? Sometimes it backfires, and we see that a lot.
I see him get despondent at times,
Yes.
like easily depressed. Maybe that's the wrong word, but he gets thrown off the game. I remember him here in the Singfield Cup feeling like, oh my God, my tournament's over. I got to get out of here. Nothing's going my way. I want to go home.
He's depressed when he wins.
That is a good point.
It's weird. I mean, he'll come and say, yeah, whatever. You know, the guy made a mistake. So what? Not that special. The guy is not the usual bird. Let's put it that way. He's
exactly.
Quite an unusual character. He's got his personality, but there's no doubt about it. Amazingly talented. Definitely an amazing chess player. And by the way, let's ask this question. What would happen if he won? What do you rate as his chances against Magnus Carlsen? And as you know, he used to have a plus score on Magnus, one of the few players in the world who did.
It was 1-0.
And he still has a plus score, in fact. He still has a plus score.
It's 2-1?
Is his chance of beating a Magnus Carlsen? Could he be Russia's next hope?
We'll see.
Well, hold that thought and turn to the game of Anish and Fabi. It's on your board, Maurice.
Well, it's been officially
It is
done.
officially a draw.
Oh, my goodness.
Game is over.
Oh, because it was just a
Giri
repetition.
repeated with Rook C1, Rook E1 check. You can probably show us, Maurice, the end of that game. Did he have any
there we
way
go.
of playing afterwards?
Rook C1,
Yes.
Knight D5. Well,
Okay.
it's easy to see because they're just bouncing back and forth.
But did he have a way of perhaps
There was
still
nothing.
avoiding
There was nothing. There was zero.
It was done.
It
Okay.
was this Knight C3 check threat is just too much. Fabi found just what he needed to find, and his opponent just let those couple of waffle moves, if you will, just not aggressive enough when he had a fantastic position. I think he thought his position was so good he could do anything.
Right.
I think that's what he was thinking. Like, this is great. I'll just do this. I'll just do this, whatever. Stop his play. Why do I have to work? It's hard to win at this level, and I'm sure he's kicking himself right now for what was an immense position that he definitely should have won. I mean, at some point, he was above a piece edge, according to the engines. I mean, just
more than 3 points.
Yes, more than 3 points. And you guys had instinctive moves. Your first thoughts were the best moves. Queen B2, Yasser, you said that looks great to me.
Get on the
and you
deck.
said, yeah, of course, Queen B2, definitely strong. Alejandro, you said Rook F2, and I'm going to go back to the critical moment right here.
Two move, yeah.
Queen B2, Yasser, you said, why don't you just play Queen B2 here? Engine says crushing. Definitely. He played Rook H2, Rook H5. Alejandro, you said, well,
double up.
Why don't you just play Rook F2 here and double on the F file? And just says, yeah, sure, just double on the F file. The game is over. He played Rook to E2, and that made his advantage drop because when D4 happened, suddenly the knight had a path into the game when he didn't have that before. And here you have to start being very precise. The best move is bishop to E4, still keeping the advantage, keeping this knight from getting anywhere in the game. You needed to play this. Instead, he messed up. He played Rook to E5. I think he thought this was stopping it. Overlooked Knight G4. Shocker of shockers. Can't take because your rook's hanging. And then when he made one tempo loss, the knight just danced and pranced, found an anchor square, and that was his attack. Gone.
Wow.
So this will certainly be leave a bitter taste in his mouth that he didn't win this game. And Fabi, of course, is his fan.
Yeah.
Woo!
I'm still at
Dodged the
50%.
bullet.
I'm still at 50%, said Fabiano Alejandro.
It's an early tournament, still only 5 rounds, so normally that's the halfway point. Here, we're just above the third.
I know, it's a 14-round event, isn't it?
A lot of tournament left. We do have a leader, 3.5 points for Jan Nepomniachtchi. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave now in second place with +1 on 3 points. Wang Hao, he moves down to 50%
as well.
I mean, that game against Giri, he really should have won. This game against Nepo, he really shouldn't have lost, in my opinion. He's still under a little bit of pressure. But if you want to be the challenger, you got to hold those positions.
No question.
Fabiano Caruana getting himself a bit lucky today, unlucky yesterday. He is currently at 50% after beating Kirill Alexeyenko and losing to Ding Liren. Alexander Grischuk is currently still playing against Ding Liren himself. We expect that to end in a draw, which would put him on 50% with 5 draws. Kirill Alexeyenko, Anish Giri, and Ding Liren would then be all tied for last with -1. But while we wait for the result of the game of Grischuk and Ding Liren, which we do really expect to be a draw, we have a phone call from Maryland.
Hello, Maryland. Welcome to our show. Tell us your name and your question.
Hi, my name is Amir, calling from Maryland.
Hi, Maryland.
And a great show as usual. I love the energy that you guys put into the show.
Thank you.
My question is, I'm a fan of Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and usually he doesn't shy away from mainline openings like the Berlin or the Marshall. My friends and I, we play a type of chess called centaur chess, which means that we're using a computer to help us find our moves. And when I play against the Marshall attack, even computers, even engines like Houdini and Stockfish, they just can't find anything against it. So my question is, should the Marshall be avoided at all costs?
Well, thank you.
Well, there you go.
For the question. And I will say that if you find something as a Marshall,
don't tell anybody.
Sell it for a lot of money.
Send us a message on the quiet.
We will definitely give you some amount of money because that is a sellable secret. Nobody has found anything against a Marshall for the last 30 years.
Exactly.
Kasparov himself never played into the marshal.
He tried to avoid it.
He tried to avoid it. And if you see modern treatment of e4, e5 that does not involve the Petra for the Berlin, they're 95%, not Italian, they're 95% anti-marshal.
Well, I mean, just take a look at Levon Aronian's career.
Or Ding Lorenz.
Or Ding Lorenz.
Yeah.
I mean, from very, very early in their career, they adopted the martial gambit in their repertoire. It was their mainstay. And in the case of Levon Aronian, he became the #2 player in the world.
Just
enough said.
Marshall,
exactly.
Else.
Exactly.
No, if you want the purely theoretical standpoint, a lot of times you just check out correspondence games.
Yeah.
They've already played the centaur type of chess that you guys do.
Just as the caller described, yeah.
Yeah, half engine, half human, which is really
Right.
like 95% engine, 5% human. I won't say anything. But
Right.
these correspondence games, they are,
Really
if you see the
impressive.
marshal, it's like 98% draw.
Exactly.
And I don't want to say the marshal is dead.
What does that say?
I don't want to say the marshal is dead, but
It's
it
killing.
certainly feels
Well,
like it, right?
For all of those viewers out there who aren't exactly familiar with the caller's question,
Yes.
so, okay, Bobby Fischer said E4, best by test. And then the answer is, okay, what are you going to do to get an advantage if I play classically as black and I put my pawn in the center? Well, everybody said the way to get an advantage as white is you've got to play the Ruy Lopez, 500-year-old opening with bishop b5. And then black says, okay, well, I'm going to counterattack you in the center, castles, and I'll defend the pawn. Bishop e7, rook e1, and essentially for, well, should I dare say 500 years, oops, excuse me, the one thing I didn't want to do, right? Bishop e5, castles. Frank Marshall, the great Frank Marshall, many-time U.S. champion, he had an idea here. Instead of playing the standard d7, d6, he very famously essayed his gambit that bears his name, d7, d5, against the world champion Jose Raul Capablanca. And Marshall's idea originally, this is the modern Marshall, is with the move c7, c6,
Yep.
and away you go. And by the way, Peter Lako, just so many players do, Dr. John Nunn. What Marshall's original idea, and it was not bad at all, his concept was like, hey, notice that all of White's pieces are on the queen side. White's king has no defenders. I'm going to play the move knight f6. And the idea from Marshall's point of view was that with no defenders on the king side, he went after Kappa's king, you know, with this line variation.
And Kappa played just unbelievable defense, refuted it over the board. A very famous game indeed.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, because of that result, the Marshal kind of died for a while.
Until it was revived later with the c7, c6. So today, c7, c6, and now White has been experimenting with d2, d3, as well as the traditional d2, d4. And there are hundreds and hundreds of top-level Grandmaster games, and White is just hitting his head against a brick wall.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they found anything for this reason.
Mickey Adams, of course. How could I not mention Mickey Adams
as a Marshall
Marshall
yeah, there's
enthusiast.
a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And it just feels that if you know your Marshall inside and out, it's just a perfect opening for black. It's Ding Lorenz's main repertoire, but you never see him play a Marshall. Ever.
He doesn't get a chance
He
anymore.
doesn't get a chance. Nobody goes into it anymore. They play d3 early.
Right.
They play a4 early. They don't play this move c3, which allows d5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jump in here, Maurice. Why did you not play the Marshall Gambit?
Well, I was never an e4, e5 player. I was always.
But you knew that it was giving White conniptions.
I knew because I played White with e4. And I actually allowed a Marshall once in my career, and of course it ended in a draw. And, and I couldn't get anything with the white pieces. So I just avoided it at all costs. It just doesn't. There's no promise there. It's just nothing to play for.
But then you didn't find it attractive as black.
Well, if you play e4, e5, it's not like you're going to get an automatic Najdorf.
Automatic.
A Rue Lopez.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, Marshall. It's not like you're going to get a Rue Lopez necessarily. Then you'd have to deal with Bishop c4 and
Bishop game,
you know, and go into a different kind of position. And those weren't my positions.
Right.
So I'm a Sicilian player, so I wanted to play the Sicilian and get those unbalanced positions. And plus, the Najdorf really you knew was a reliable draw. That's pretty. I mean, you know, white plays well.
Okay. That's an interesting way.
Maurice,
let me interrupt you real quick. Can I see the position just to know what's going on in the grid game? We do have a lot of moves.
Three versus three.
I assume nothing's happened, but I just wanted to update.
What kind of ending do we have?
Yeah.
What's to look at?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to see the position. That was
well. The other thing is, we were saying to ourselves way back.
Yeah.
If we were ever to win the e5 pawn.
Yes.
Okay. What kind of position will Black then be defending? He doesn't want to be defending a king and pawn endgame. No, that's the only one. Bishop ending was all right. A rook and pawn endgame was all right. A queen and pawn endgame was all right.
They're all cool.
It looks like Ding Liren is saying, if I can get a rook and pawn ending, a pawn down, that's an easy draw for me.
I'm not even sure he's necessarily going to go a pawn down.
Miles away from
in
losing
fact,
a pawn.
If I
whoa, I can take it, can't I?
Well, it's Black to move.
Oh, I apologize.
Maybe might make it difficult.
For some reason, when I'm looking at the pawn, I was going to take the pawn. Okay. Coffee.
Yeah.
The Starbucks is closed. I just want to point that out.
And
across the street.
It should be closed.
Okay,
I think you can do pickup, though.
Okay.
You can take on e3, take on e3, rook e6, all of this already on the board. And since I can just hold on to this pawn on e5.
I'm not even
He actually
winning.
took with the pawn.
Oh, I beg your pardon?
You take with the pawn.
Okay.
And he played rook e6. So you just kind of defend the pawn, rook b5, rook king, I'm assuming f6. Maybe king g5 is also good.
Either this, you have to calculate, or
But
this.
I don't think that's a very hard calculation.
Yeah, also solid.
Well, there is rook f1, right? There is a rook f1 siding. I'm not saying there's
at the start.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm just throwing out a move.
Here, I'll definitely play king g5. I think I'm up a tempo.
And then after king g5,
we signed the draw.
You know,
peace treaty. I'm going to play probably rook to g1 to avoid king and pawn.
Yeah, just dead. Rook g7, rook b7 played instead of whatever.
Okay, so keeping the king honest.
But,
you can't,
but without a threat, right?
You're right.
There is no threat in this.
And then g6 and king g5.
Or just can play rook e8 or.
Yeah.
I think pretty much anything that doesn't blunder.
Wait. There are just
Excuse me.
He played rook e8, by the way.
Rook b7, rook e8 on the board.
Oh, I wanted to try to trick you with the other one.
Show me this trick. Show.
Well, king f6, there is a king d5 siding.
Okay, and
just hoping you might, allow a little g5 action. Oh, I get it. Look at that. You fell for the trick. You're so nice.
Oh,
so kind.
Well, did you see the barometer kind of gave, the chessometer kind of gave it away there, didn't it?
Looking for tricks. You know me. I'm from Brooklyn. We will sneak you if you don't pay attention. Unfortunately, you could move the rook away, and then there's no more trick.
In fact, that's what he did at step one. He just
right
had oops, excuse me. Let me just move my rook. Yeah. Immediately.
Now, zero tricks.
Now, zero tricks. There's
now
no.
You got nothing, and we'll have nothing forever. Have nothing.
Well, a great day thus far for Jan.
Jan couldn't ask for anything better. 3 draws.
Yeah, you guys all draw, right? And he takes Wang Hao, a co-leader, out
of the picture for now.
Yeah.
But also importantly, remember the tie breaks.
Exactly. Remind everybody about the tie breaks.
First tie break is head-to-head, which means that if we get to the end of the tournament and somehow it's Wang Hao and Nepomniachtchi that are at the top with a better score against Wang Hao, that will give Nepo the qualification spot against Magnus.
So the first tie break is how you did against one another, the two winners, if you will.
Yes.
What did they do in their head-to-head matchup?
Yeah,
it's tie break number 1.
Individual results is the official name because let's say there's 3 people, then it's still the individual results between them.
Gotcha. Well, beating your co-tournament leader,
that's
really good.
That's
what it's about.
That's excellent. Absolutely. Okay. That's a double win.
Right.
That's a double win. Every time you beat somebody who was a potential threat. And we talked about this before, and it's getting more and more difficult for players to catch people, right? You look at Jan. Jan is sitting now at +2. Ding Liren is sitting at -1.
Oof.
That's a major difference.
Yeah,
It doesn't. It may not look so big. It is a 1.5. It's a major difference. What has to happen? Ding Liren literally has to, crash and burn, and
the other way around.
The other way
Nepo
around.
has
Nepo
to
has to crash and burn, and Ding Liren
has to go on a rampage.
surge.
Yeah.
So you might feel like there's a lot of rounds left, but we've seen this story before,
I
guys.
still feel that's a lot of rounds left.
You might feel that way. I got to say, Alejandro, I know a lot of things could happen, but we also know how these things normally go.
Yeah.
And normally,
By the way, guys, we do have a result.
and it was a draw.
Even.
We're assuming. Usually, the way this works, when somebody starts taking over and people start dropping back, there's something unusual about chess that way. The guy who's in the lead usually just stays in the lead.
Right.
So it
Lots
has to
of
happen
draws.
pretty soon.
Yeah.
You don't remember we said the formula was lose, but lose late.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose early. You want to lose late. Right now, Nepo is saying, just let me play some more. Let me collect a couple more. So when I lose later, if I do, I will have already gotten a nice little lead. It's a dangerous moment. It is still a lot left, but we'll be at the halfway point in just before you know it. 2 rounds, and it'll be there. And so watch out, because this is right on the edge of danger for a few people. The bubble is there for a couple of people. Not for everybody, but just for a couple.
All right, fair enough.
All right, yeah.
Well, we do have standings after 5 rounds, as we do have that result already on the board. Jan Nepomniachtchi first, clear leader of the 2020 candidates, 3.5 points. MVL following it up by having 3. That's a +1 score. And then on 50%, we have Wang Hao, Fabiano Caruana, and Alexander Grischuk, all of them with 2.5 out of 5. Kirill Alexenko, Anish Giri, and Ding Liren saying, look, yes, it's a 1.5 away from Nepo, but they're not out of it. They're not out of it by any means. It's still a long tournament. Certainly an uphill battle for many of them, but one that they can still climb.
Well, when we came into today's action, Alejandro, there was only a 1-point gap between them, and this is our schedule. Going forward, we'll have round 6 tomorrow, and then the free day. So that's the schedule. 3 games in a row, free day. 3 games in a row, free day. They came in today pretty well
Balanced. Tight-packed, yeah.
Yeah, and then suddenly, okay, now it's getting stretched a little bit as Nepo takes a clear lead. It's not a commanding lead.
Not by any means. Let's take a look at the pairings and see what is going to be in store for us tomorrow. Crucial round. Who is Nepo playing the day of tomorrow? He'll be playing with white against Ding Liren.
Yeah. We were just talking, Maurice was just explaining Ding Liren's far back. If he's going to make a move, Maurice.
That would be a huge move. They also have Alexander Grischuk with the white pieces against Fabiano Caruana. That is a classic matchup. Remember, that was the game that gave Fabi the candidate spot last time.
In 2018 Berlin.
Kirill Alexenko will be playing white against Anish Giri. Meanwhile, Wang Hao will try to recover with the white pieces against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who repeats black.
Wow. Okay, well, that's a very exciting pairing for sure. I can't wait for that one. And Maurice, Fabiano, after doing really, really well, he's kind of slipped precipitously these last few rounds. Give us your final thoughts about today, and what do you think about the tournament thus far?
Yes, I'm starting to feel that there's a little bit of separation with Nepo and MVL. Those two are looking like the stars right now, and the other players, in the next couple of rounds, we're going to see some real decisions getting made, how to play, because you don't want a player to start extending his lead, and you want to be in the mix, because turning it on just like that is not easy in these events. Everybody's so strong, everybody's so good that once one player gets a lead, he feels like, this is hard for all of us. It may be hard for me, but it's hard for the rest of you too. So will somebody in the back catch form that they need to be able to surge and compete at the very top? It's a delicate time, even though it's still early, a lot of tournament left to be sure, 9 rounds. The tension is building, absolutely fascinating moment. And tomorrow, just before the rest day, we know they usually give it their all because the rest day follows. So it should be an extremely exciting day. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, 6. And let's just take a look at how Nepo got to where he is, Alejandro.
So he's won his first game against Anish Giri, a brilliant game with the black pieces. Draw against Christiuk. That was a strange one. This rookie
It really
one,
was.
rookie
It
four.
really was.
We didn't pay a lot of attention to that game, but I did kind of analyze it later. I saw some articles. Christiuk had chances.
Yeah.
Christiuk did have chances in that game. It seemed very dull. And
I got lost on the conference where Grishik said, I fell asleep, like that kind of. But he really did have chances.
He really did have chances. Then
his game with Alexenko, Kirill, that Bishop G6. That
it was a moment that
spicy.
defines the candidates. Bishop G6 could have been played by Alexenko. Then against Caruana, again, a lucky escape. Definitely a better position for Fabi. And Wang Hao, well, he actually won a nice game today. Yes, it was drawn, I'm sure, with correct play, but he put the pressure. He was never in danger. He just said, I come here to put pressure. If you fall apart, you fall apart. And he did. Wang Hao just fell apart at some point during today's game, and he picks up the points.
Well, not only that, I always feel that these tournaments are so demanding that you need a little luck. And we're seeing that he's had a little luck. He needs that to continue. But if he can keep finding the moves that he played today, I mean, he will feel very, very confident as the tournament progresses.
No, he won't.
Yes, he will.
No, he won't.
Yes, he will.
No, sorry. You got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy.
But he's
might feel confident, but Nepo never feels confident. He's always a skeptic. He's seen this story before. He was +3 in the tournament, 3-0 to start, and crashed and burned against the elite. Nepo is the kind of guy that says,
okay.
Not until the tournament's over. Don't talk to me until the tournament is over.
Right.
Then I'll tell you how I did.
Okay.
He's always the skeptic, but so far, even with his skepticism, he's got to feel like, okay, this is not so bad.
Yeah. As we start to close the show here, just one question for you. Who does Jan work with? Who should we call out and say, well...
Putkin. Putkin is definitely his main coach.
Exactly.
He's the Russian Federation coach.
For former European champion.
Former European champion.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
He's very famous as well in the chess world as one of the best coaches out there.
Oh, there you go.
And, well, we're being told that this is a good time for predictions on who's going to win the candidates after 5 rounds, completely biased commentators.
Totally. Well, let's be honest. I came in with being the biggest Fabi fan in the world, and I want to see Fabi winning. So I want to say Fabi. I really, really do. But my head says that at this moment that MVL is looking like the man as well. I'm going to go with Fabi.
Wow, just like that.
Just like that. I mean, that's the guy.
Okay.
That's the guy. That's the guy who's got to play Magnus.
Had he lost today, would you still have said Fabi?
Oh, I'd be crying.
I'd be crying, but you would have said Fabi.
I would have said Fabi.
Maurice, I know you're going with the numbers.
Well, I'm going to say Magnus. Oh, sorry, he's not playing. Okay, I'm going to say MVL. I'm going to make a bold prediction there. I think Nepo is really the favorite right now, but he hasn't shown that absolute consistency for me to just go straight ahead and go with him. And I think right now MVL looks like he's playing the tightest chess. He did have a little bit of a hiccup in round 1 against Fabi. It was a small one. It wasn't even that serious, actually, to tell the truth. It was just he had to defend a worse position, which he did admirably. But since then, I got to say, he's looked like his preparation is fantastic, and he just needs to get a couple of wins. And I'm not all sold yet on Nepo. I would have said Nepo, but I'm just going to go right now with my gut and say MVL.
He's already booking his flight to Dubai, by the way, so that's impressive. Alejandro.
This one is a tough one. For me, I think Jan is a great chess player. I just don't see him finishing well in many events. And it's like a 50-50. Does he just destroy the tournament from now? He keeps playing good chess, finds the resources, finishes on +5, +6 because he's just playing that well.
Right.
Or does he do the Nepo thing, which is he starts really well, middle of the tournament, it's so-so, loses a couple of games here and there, and doesn't finish the +3, let's say, that he needs.
The roller coaster Nepo, huh?
It's just a gamble at this point. I'm still gonna go with Fabi because I look at the numbers and it really depends. It really depends whether he can get his head on the game. I mean, when you look at it, he starts 50% and 3 of them are black.
Okay, there's a positive spin.
It's not that bad.
Right.
He has a really bad game today. It really depends. Can Fabi find his form?
Yeah.
Can he get everything that's bothering him outside of his mind? That's the big question, and something that is going around all of the candidates. It affects all of them. The situation in the world really, really is complicated. A lot of them have families in dangerous places.
Exactly. There's a lot of things happening off the board that are throwing them off their games.
And to guess which one is best suited at shutting that out, that's difficult. The more this progresses, the more difficult it's going to become. I'm hearing that the Count himself, Christian Kirill, is choosing MVL. I'm going to stick with Fabi, but I almost feel like not choosing Nepo by any of us is irresponsible.
I know. That just shows bias. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, we just wanted to say that it's been a fabulous candidates tournament. It's been a respite, a wonderful distraction for me personally. I'm really looking forward to it each and every day. I always regret when there's a free day, but I just want to say thank you all for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Stay home.
Bye for now.